Good morning and welcome back to the CDBG committee meeting of February 21st. We will continue our interviews with social agencies. Next agency, please.
The next agency is Housing Rights Center for the Fair Housing Program.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good, thank you. I'm Chancellor Al-Mansour, the Executive Director of the Housing Rights Center. We're the fair housing agency that's been providing fair housing services for the City of Glendale for more than 12 years. We've submitted a proposal, as we have in the past, for continued funding to provide fair housing services. And as you'll see, as part of our application, we provide general landlord-tenant counseling for the residents of Glendale, in addition to analyzing their cases and speaking with them and determining whether or not their cases may involve illegal discrimination that violates the Fair Housing Act, State and Federal Fair Housing Act as well. And we also provide a number of workshops and clinics and work with other community-based organizations in the City of Glendale to serve their residents as well.
Great.
Nice.
Questions, comments?
I have a question, kind of along the same theme I ask everyone. How do you do outreach to the different ethnic communities to overcome language barriers to make sure your services they know that they're available?
So we have a number of full-time staff members that speak a variety of languages. We have full-time staff members that speak Armenian, Russian, Mandarin, Cantonese, Spanish, a lot of Spanish-speaking staff members, and a few other languages as well. And if it's a language that's not one of those probably main 7 primary languages, we do have translation services in addition as well. We also work with a lot of community-based organizations that also will help provide language services as needed as well. So we haven't had an issue, thankfully, or a complaint that I know of to the city that we have not been able to meet the language needs of the residents of Glendale.
And how do you reach out to make sure that the people of those different constituencies know about your services?
So our brochures and materials are translated in a number of different languages, and so we distribute over 1,200 pieces of literature to various community-based organizations in Glendale and the city as well, of all of the languages both the language assistance that we provide telephonically and in person, in addition to written materials that have already been translated in numerous languages as well.
Are there specific organizations you partner with?
Yeah, we've partnered with the Glendale Armenian Relief Society, with PATH in Glendale, with the DPSS for homeless service providers as well, with Neighborhood Legal Services. Those I have others as well, but those are the ones off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Great. Committee Member Tashian, any?
I did read your outreach material.
Sorry, can you turn on your mic?
I did read your outreach material, so I understand who you're seeking out and who you assist, and I also understand that in order for us to be in compliance with HUD, there needs to be some type of funding. And I believe Moises had previously mentioned that at least the minimum threshold funding should be somewhere within the $9,000 to $10,000 range. So I understand that also.
Yes, and thank you for articulating that as well for the benefit of the committee members. Yes, under the HUD requirements for cities and counties and any agency, municipality that receives federal funds, a mandate in order to receive those federal funds is to affirmatively further fair housing, to both look at impediments to fair housing that may exist within your city, but also things that the city can do affirmatively to make sure that housing discrimination does not occur. So part of fulfilling your obligation to affirmatively further fair housing is to contract with an agency to provide those services.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Committee Member Ramirez.
Morning.
Welcome. I did want you to maybe clarify a little bit more about affirmatively furthering fair housing. Exactly what do you mean by affirmatively furthering?
It's been a requirement for federal funds for a number of years. Coincidentally, HUD just just released its proposed rules to further explain affirmatively for fair housing. They haven't released the actual rule yet, but they are very soon. I met with HUD officials just last Friday, as a matter of fact, that control this area, and they're very close to releasing. That will describe a little bit more. So I'm sure your city staff is familiar with that and may have even commented on it. But basically, it's the federal government realized that just stopping and laws or just implementing laws that say discrimination is bad and illegal is not enough in order to make sure that housing discrimination does not occur against the protected categories on the basis of race, religion, nationality, disability, mental and physical disability, ethnicity, age, having children, and so forth, of the protected categories. They realized it wasn't enough just to say don't discriminate. That cities and municipalities have to do more, especially if they're receiving federal funds, to make sure that discrimination does not happen. So one of those things is contracting with an agency to make sure that your residents and landlords and housing providers are educated about what the laws are, to make sure they don't discriminate before it happens. And to make sure that people are informed of their rights. So, in other words, to do everything to prevent the discrimination from happening in the first place. Because discrimination is an injury.
And then your protected classes are?
So protected classes are, a housing provider cannot, and that's in rental of apartments as well as sales, as well as providing insurance and other things as well. But a housing provider cannot treat a person differently because they are a member of a protected category. A protected category would be being a senior, being disabled, both physical and mental disabilities, having children or being pregnant, being of any ethnicity or race, or speaking any language, religion, nationality, what country you're from, being a senior citizen or a child. So those are the main kind of protected categories. Sexual orientation as well, and California law even goes a bit further. You can't discriminate against a person because of how they identify gender-wise or gender expression, or being transgender and under state law. So all of my staff is educated to know what these laws are. So when housing providers or tenants call us and they wonder whether or not they've been discriminated against, or when we do these workshops or clinics and trainings, we let people know what the discrimination is that they can't do. Because some discrimination is legal. It is legal to discriminate against somebody because they have bad credit, for instance. But it's not legal to discriminate against somebody because their source of income is Social Security or unemployment or child support. A landlord can't say, I don't want to rent to you because you receive your income through welfare benefits. So we make sure that to educate the housing providers and the tenants to know that these things are illegal and that they can and can't do certain things.
But do you have protected classes in terms of ethnicity and race?
Well,
Designated? It seems like they did back in the...
Yes.
When?
Yes. So you are a member. You cannot be discriminated against based on your membership in a protected class.
Which are?
Which is based on your race. So it's not as
They're identified, right?
Based on how you identify yourself, racially, religiously, ethnically, had disability, having children, senior, marital status, so forth.
Beyond that, I'm talking in terms of race and ethnicity and possibly religion, I guess.
Yeah, I think the confusion may be is that it's not as if one particular religion or one particular race is a member of a protected class.
There was 5.
No, everybody is protected regardless of
That's
race.
what I needed to
Yeah,
know.
regardless of religion. We all have protections so that no matter what my religion is, a person can't discriminate against me. Or because I'm not religious,
You're not
a person
religious.
can't discriminate against me. So everybody's protected, whether you're white, black, Asian, so forth. It doesn't matter. If somebody's treating you differently because of your membership in a protected class, race, religion, ethnicity, disability, children, so forth, they can't treat you differently.
So that's part of your forums that you present, that affirmative.
To affirmatively further,
Initially,
yes,
yeah.
exactly, to make sure
Part of
people
your
understand that everybody has, basically everybody in this room has a protection, is protected under the Fair Housing Act, whether you're male, female. There are people who discriminate against people because they're, single, straight, white males.
Yeah.
So even they are protected under the Fair Housing Act as well.
Okay.
Would criminal background be considered the protected
It depends. Just based on a person's criminal background, no. Criminal background is not a protected category. One can discriminate against somebody.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, public housing does all the time, right? You can't, if you have a felony, you can't live in a subsidized building.
Can't vote.
But we would still look at that to see whether or not the housing provider is only looking into the criminal background of a person because they're African American, Latinos, like are they only doing it to the Latino applicants and, not to the Asian applicants, because sometimes that happens. Certain people are basically evaluated or put under stricter analysis for whether or not they can live in an apartment based on their membership in a protected class, having a single mother with kids, having a federal subsidy, something like that.
And it also states that you have served close to 360 members. Is it Glendale or?
So to date, under our proposal, we will serve over 630 residents directly. That doesn't count the ones that receive our literature and so forth, but the ones that actually we do a one-on-one service to, over 630. To date, I did run our statistics to see where we were this year at the 6-month point, and we are well over that amount, having served 359 people as of December 31st of this year.
And that's for Glendale residents?
For Glendale residents exclusively.
Thank you. Any other
I had one more question.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you on your referrals to the California Department of Employment and Housing, who are referred?
So we tend to refer people to the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, where we analyzed the case. We did an investigation. Maybe we've actually spoken with the person. We may find discrimination. We may not. It's usually not a super strong case. If it's a super strong case, we will keep it and represent that person and try to work it out with the landlord, either try to mediate it and so forth. Sometimes the tenant feels that they're still discriminated against, even if we may or may not find it. We want to tell them that they do have a right to file a case with the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, the state agency, and so we'll give them the right to do so.
Do they have to come to you before they file?
No, they can go directly to, and on your website, you may even have a link directly to the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, so they can go directly and file with the Department of Fair Employment and Housing. They can do both at the same time. A person, it's not like an employment law where you have to file with the Equal Employment
Like the
Commission
city or
first
the
and get a right to
schools.
sue letter
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then be
Yes.
denied. And all this in housing, you can do both simultaneously. You can have your government complaint and your private action right to sue or something at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Take a moment and fill out the form. Okay, next agency, please.
The 7th agency is Committee for Armenian Students in Public Schools, CASPS, for the Intervention Prevention Clinical Group Counseling Program.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hi, my name is Arsina Hovanesian. I'm the Executive Director of CASPS, and I have with me longtime board member Mrs. Laura Atoyan and new board member Ms. Armina Khambabian. So we're here for the, I think, 9th year, maybe, for the Intervention Prevention Clinical Group Counseling Program. Our program is a pull-out clinical group therapy program during school hours. I'd really like to stress this is not an after-school program. It is during school hours, once a week, where kids who have started exhibiting at-risk behavior, antisocial behavior in the classroom are referred to this program by their teachers and administrators, and we work with them in a group setting. It is in an elementary program for K through 5th students, and we work with them throughout the year for 30 weeks. And we'd really like to expand. We used to be in 2 schools. Our funding was cut. We're back down to 1 school. We'd like to really go back to 2 and hopefully expand to 3 schools, if possible. And if you have any questions, I mean, there's so much more to say, but maybe I'll leave it to you to ask the questions.
Thank you. I'm very well familiar with the program. So it's a very valuable program that you offer to all students. Comments, questions?
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you
differentiate your program from some of the other programs that offer similar type of counseling, perhaps Salvation Army or Glendale Healthy Kids? I just want to know the difference in your program.
I'm very happy you asked that question. We really can't compare our program to any other program being offered, at least from what I know through CDBG, because, like I said, our program is during school hours. It is free for the students. Any student attending the schools can be a part of this program. And it is a pull-out group program. It is not one-on-one counseling like other agencies offer. And it's for students during school hours. So it's group therapy in a group setting at school.
And then how do you get your referrals?
From the teachers and administrators. The teachers are given referral forms, and the administrators are given referral forms. They refer the students to the program. The psychologists who run the program assess the students. They do pre-tests. They assess the students, and then they group the students based on age and issues in different groups, and they work with them in a group setting. And it's based play art therapy for K through 5th students.
And what schools
And it's
are you?
unique in its format.
Of course.
Yeah.
What schools are you targeting right now?
Right now, we're at Columbus Elementary School, but we'd like to expand to
All of them.
the demand is there. There are many schools who want the program. Of course, we understand the budget is never enough to cover so many of the schools, but most of the principals, administrators we talk to, they want the program in their schools because so many of the families aren't able to provide this kind of counseling after school or on their own time, one, for financial issues, and secondly, because in the evenings it's hard for parents to get the help they need for their children after a long day of work. So this is the best way to get to the children. And the premise of the program is, it's called intervention prevention. So we're trying to intervene at a young age to prevent future problems, which will escalate in middle school and high school. So that's why we work with elementary students. So before these problems become bigger and bigger and harder to deal with once they reach middle school and high school, we're trying to intervene and prevent the problems. So most of these kids have just started showing signs of problems.
Well, what are the
erratic
problems?
Behavior.
What type of problems are you talking about?
We're talking about not being able to get along with peers, showing antisocial behavior, not being able to follow rules and responsibilities, classroom behavior, having problems at home with home issues, maybe in the family, with sick parents, domestic violence, divorce, all sorts of issues that affect a child's behavior in the classroom and prevent them from learning, and they start acting out and behaving in a way they're not supposed to. And little by little, these problems they escalate. So you look at our application, the outcomes are stated clearly what we're trying to achieve with these kids. We're not dealing with cases where there's, like, for example, a suicide case or something very serious where a play art group therapy may not be able to address. Those kinds of students are referred to serious intervention. And I'd like my fellow board members to speak too.
Yeah, please feel free if you need to come forward and make comments. Committee member Armenian.
I have a couple of questions. You said you're at Columbus.
Right now we are.
What is the reason why you've chosen that school over
That was
other schools?
in the first year we were funded through CDBG, 2005, 2006, I believe. We started at Columbus, and we like to stick to the
My
same.
question is why? Why
Why
Columbus?
Columbus?
Yeah.
At the time, back in 2005, the principal was very interested, so we started there, and
So you saw a need there. There was a need.
there is definitely a need there. There's a need in every
School.
school in Glendale.
Yeah, so I guess that's where my question is
Yeah.
going. I mean, obviously, there is not unlimited funds, unfortunately.
Right.
In your proposal, you talk about Muir and R.D. White as well.
Right.
How would you prioritize based upon whatever funding you might get?
Which school would we go to first?
Yeah, well, or first, second, third. I mean, you mentioned three
I
in your
think
proposal.
once we're funded, we would have to maybe speak to the schools again and decide between which schools we would go to.
Based on the need?
Based on the need. Based on the need.
And is that an assessment you do with the principals?
Yes. Yes, the principals are always involved. And we
And-
have contracts and MOUs with the principals.
Okay. And then my other question is, so if your program were to go away, what would the impact be, in your opinion?
Devastating.
As a teacher, can I answer
Please.
that? My name is Armina Kambabi, and I just retired from Unified School District. I have worked in elementary as well as high school level. There are problems in the classroom that teacher cannot handle. Students are not able to concentrate. There are not special ed students. There is no other help in school, but something like this program that they could help them to consult them, help the parents, and help the teachers and the students. But anything that in the classroom that impedes the learning, it needs to be helped. This is a program that really does help, and I'm an advocate of that program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you look at the application to answer, to further elaborate on that, what am I trying to say? There aren't enough resources in the schools to address these problems. So if a program like ours is to go away, that means those students will not be necessarily be helped. Of course, there are, I'm not saying there aren't any resources, but there aren't similar resources in the schools to address these problems.
And the impact of that long-term is?
Well, we're trying to prevent students from being incarcerated down the line, from getting into bigger trouble. One thing that we like to stress is we were given 10,000 this year. If you divide that to 25 children for a 30-week program, it's really a very low-cost program. And compare that to what it would cost the city or the state if these kids end up in bigger trouble down the line, and incarceration and all that other kinds of things that cost us a lot more money than $10 an hour. So those are the issues. And also, we did we do follow-up all the time. But last year, especially, we followed all the students at Columbus that we had worked with since '05. None of those students had ended up, if you're familiar with the Daily Continuation School here in Glendale, none of them had ended up at Daily. And that was a huge plus for us, because at least we had stopped them from ending up there. They were doing okay. They were following what they need to follow. They were on the right track in middle school. And that's our goal, to keep them on the right track. I'd like Ms. Laura to say something too.
I think you've covered most everything. Good morning, I'm Laura Etoyen. I've worked on this project from day one. I've been a member of CASP for 18 years, and I'm the person who writes the grant. So if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. But the one thing I'd like to stress is the statistics about expulsions. Between 2005 and last year, the rate of expulsions for elementary students was at 16 to 21%. And that is very alarming for all of us. And in light of what happened at Sandy Hook last year in 2012, that was, everything shows that we have not decreased school shootings. If anything, we've had more, as you well know. It's almost a weekly occurrence, school shootings. So mental health issues for students at school during school hours or while they are in school are either ignored or punished. Where we come in is the preventive measure. So it's better to prevent rather than correct. And this is really the mission. And this program is not about this year or next year. It's about 20 years down the line, 25 years down the line. When you look at, kids who have become educated and are taxpayers, so we can continue to provide schooling.
If I may, Vice Chair.
Yes, please.
I believe it's important to address these issues early, and I think it's very critical, actually. The issue we always have each year is the funding.
Yes.
And I believe that in your presentation or in your packet, your wished-for amount is about $35,193. That's about 80%, and that's to serve 3 schools.
Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes.
If you get funding for one school, what's the minimum that you'll be able to receive and operate adequately?
Rock bottom is $15,000. Rock bottom, really, and then we leverage so much of it.
Like we are this year.
Yeah.
It's really hurting us, but
Yeah.
we don't want the program. So we do whatever we can.
Well, like I said, I think it's an important program, and I think that to address the issues that children have generally between K to
Yes.
6 is where you should start, not later on in their lives.
Yes. Exactly, that's what it takes. And we know, as Arsina mentioned, the kids we've served, we don't see their names on the daily high school roster. So that is a plus.
Yes. I agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your support. We appreciate it. You've been with us for all these years.
Let me ask one more question.
Yes.
I just wanted to check, and I think the state has identified mental health as a critical issue, like Commissioner over here indicated. It is something that should be in every school.
Every school.
And I think what you're doing, the 3 of you, and it's just
Oh,
commendable.
there are more of us.
There's,
The 3 of us are directly
Yeah,
involved
but
with
you,
this
I think
program.
you have one therapist, right, or psychologist?
We have 1 psychologist and
staff.
and staff.
And staff, yeah.
So, and we've never raised our prices.
Yeah.
I want you to know that year after year, we submit the same budget for the psychological services they receive.
Well, I could make a lot of comments on this program, but I'll defer. But I did have a question, and it's, you do get parental consent before you refer?
Absolutely,
No
absolutely.
child can be seen and consent for.
And do you meet with a parent, or?
Oh, yes.
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 And the,
Speaking to the mic.
oh, I'm sorry. What they do is, once they do they get the consent form, they meet with the parent, they meet with the child, they do the pretest, and throughout the sessions, there's feedback back and forth with the teachers, so they follow the behavior to see how the child is improving or not improving in the classroom, and also with the parents. So there's constant feedback between the different parties involved.
And
They're working together to help the child.
And you can differentiate between the special needs. Sometimes it's kind of iffy, you
Yes,
really
but-
don't.
Yeah, if it is a identified special ed student, we don't work with those students because that's a whole different,
Do you find that they're identified?
well, the schools identified
Yeah.
the special ed students. The schools are in charge of that. We don't get involved in
Yeah,
that.
okay.
May I say something? School psychologists do the testing
Oh, okay.
to distinguish between special ed and behavioral issues. And if they are assessed as having only behavioral issues, they're referred to us.
Okay.
They're referred to us for various reasons, and then the psychologists work on
Right.
grouping them
Right.
based on their issues. And like I said, if it is a very serious issue or a matter of life and death, referred elsewhere.
Thank you so much.
I think there is one more question.
One more
Commissioner.
question is, do you turn away students because you have lack of capacity to,
All the time.
Well, if we get, yes, if we have to.
can you quantify how much you turn away because you don't have enough funding?
Well, the different schools that we had to cut out this year.
That's a lot.
But I'm talking about number of
30
students.
per school, 30 per school. We have a maximum of 30. In our, we try to serve 25 at school, but maximum of 30.
So you think there's about 30 people in need per school?
There's
About
more than
approximately?
30. There's
More
more
than
than 30. I'll tell you, there's definitely more than that at each school. But one issue which programs like ours always face is stigma with mental health, and parents who sometimes are reluctant to sign that paper because they don't want their child associated with any kind of mental health label or stigma. So that's something we always have to work on with the parents and the families. The principals help, the teacher specialists help. They call us sometimes. We try to tell them it's all confidential, which is, and it's to help their child. Sometimes parents don't see the benefit until later.
Thank you very much.
That's why it's called counseling instead of therapy.
Right, right.
yes.
And we're very careful with our wording.
I understand.
Mental health, counseling, therapy, exactly, because it does make a difference.
Just need to clarify one thing. So you did not receive any funding last year, but you were able to maintain the Columbus School.
We did receive
It was
funding.
the
Also, you received 10,000.
Yes, the
Okay.
year before.
Year before you
yes,
didn't receive.
we didn't. But this, currently, we are in a program. And I'd also like to say one thing. I just want to say thank you to Moises, because for 9, 10 years, however long it's been, he's always been so helpful to us, and I just want you to know how wonderful he is. So
He is,
But
and
we-
every...
kudos to him.
We agree with that, right?
He's okay.
That's a good, oh,
Well, I'm sure he is too. I just always work with Moises. So.
A
Anyway.
great staff. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
They're
Thank
very
you.
helpful.
Thank
thank
you
you,
for your support.
Asina. Thank
We
you.
appreciate
Thank you,
it.
ladies.
Next agency, please.
The eighth agency is Catholic Charities of Los Angeles, Inc. for Loaves and Fishes Homeless Prevention Program.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Moeed Khan. I'm representing Catholic Charities. I retired in December, end of December, but I'm here as a special assistant to our executive director. On my right is Margaret Pontius. She is replacing me as a program director for the region, and on my left is Laura, who has been coordinating Loaves and Fishes program for many years. I'd like to thank you, first of all, for some of you have been very familiar and very supportive of Loaves and Fishes. Let me give you a little bit of background on the Loaves and Fishes. I've been, as I said, I'm still kind of involved, but retired after 33 years. In 1984, we began to see in the city of Glendale a transformation. We began to see people asking for basic needs, like food and clothing. And at that time, we came up with the concept of Loaves and Fishes. And it was, we were very lucky to and very fortunate to have the location at Orange Street, which is now Americana. And we were there for 8 years. So we got some, it was a joint effort by myself and the previous former, my predecessor, the regional director. We came under a little criticism by why are we opening in this affluent city Loaves and Fishes. And but over the years, this program has evolved, and we were very fortunate to be having worked with Mr. Jess Duran and Moises and the department for years. It was a very, for me, I can look back at a very exciting time that we were involved in really defining and looking at what the issues were. And if I may say, and some people may not remember, but HUD came up with the concept of a continuum of care. And I very firmly believe, and I think some of us do believe, that the inception of this the continuum of care took place in city of Glendale. I understand at that time Secretary Cisnero, and then now Governor of Cuomo, who was an assistant secretary, came and had a meeting at our Glendale Community Center, and we made a presentation, and I think it became the cornerstone of the continuum of care for the HUD. So continuum of care, I'm sure you are familiar with that, is looking at the gaps in the services and how can we integrate the services in a manner we can be more effective. And that was the genesis and start of the program. Over the years, working with the city and the community, the program has evolved into a kind of a very significant program. I'm here today to talk about CDBG grant, but this is a comprehensive program in the sense that we get funding from ESG. Well, through the city, we also, as Catholic Charities, go through EFSP, which used to be formerly known as FEMA. We bring in the revenues from FEMA, which is not part of this, but because we're just sticking with the CDBG. But I just wanted to give you the background. We work with the local parishes. We work with a very significant partner also is LA Food Bank, which gives us food at a very nominal cost and also sometimes free. So, and local churches, and we have support of close to 20-plus volunteers with this just one staff and a part-time person. Really, we couldn't do it. We really greatly appreciate the opportunity. The CDBG pays for the part of the salary of the staff, and we parlay the rest of the, ESG and CDBG and Shelter Partners are working with the other social service agencies. So it's a very unique program. I believe it's the program is of its kind, and the focus is for CDBGR is to prevent homeless prevention. But it combines, we serve close to 25,000 people a year. That's duplicated. People come, return. And so it's a pretty significant poverty program helping the poor, working poor, seniors on fixed income. And it also has an incorporated case management program where we begin to assess what the needs are. If sometimes we are not able to meet those needs, we are able to parlay that and connect with other agencies. So the past couple of years has been somewhat challenging because HUD has changed its rules and regulation, who qualifies, who doesn't qualify. So it has made our work a little bit harder, and there's with the introduction of HMIS, the data collecting system that HUD has developed, it has taken a lot of time. So we are asking a little bit more funds this year. I know your constraints. We understand that. And in conclusion, what I like to say that is that I would like to extend my deep appreciation to the committees over the years that I have come here and made a presentation. This is going to be my last appearance before you guys, and also like to thank Jess and Moises and the staff who has worked with me. And as I said, look back, hope I can hold back my tears. That has been a very exciting journey. So I hope you will continue to support the program. And now after this, if you have any questions about the program, about the proposals, so we'll be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you. I think you've done a great job. Thank you for your dedication, commitment over the years. And congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Mr. Armenian?
A few questions.
Yes, please.
Since I'm the new kid on the block here. How do you reach out to make sure that you're reaching all segments of the community?
It's, Laura and have been very part of the Homeless Coalition committees. We have been around in the community since 1984. I believe last year we did, with the help with the city, we did some marketing on that program. In one sense, it's good that we don't lack of clients. People know that is the only kind of significant program in the city. So, and over the years, working with the churches, local churches. Just to give you another example, that sometimes around Christmas, there's oftentimes the Glendale Press does a article on the needs of the poor and all this, and in response to their article, a gentleman walked in, and Laura called me. She said, "Are you sitting down?" I said, "Why?" She said, "This guy walked in, a gentleman who had 6 cartload of food that bought from Costco, And then, 15, I'm sorry. And he handed me a check, and she said, well, how much? $20,000. So there is, there's a lot of support from the community. The community knows about the program. So that's how we function.
Thank you. And I know you have a large footprint beyond Glendale. How do you focus whatever resources you get from CDBG on Glendale needs?
The program is exclusively set up for in the past. We used to be able to extend beyond the Glendale city limits, but for the past 2 years or so, we have working with the city. We have restricted for the city of Glendale residents.
Okay, thank you. And then there was one thing in your proposal, and I just wanted some clarification. It seemed like in terms of number of households helped over the last 5 or 6 years, it's kind of trended down. Is that because the need is less, or and it's kind of similar funding levels?
No, I think partly is the rules and regulations have changed. Like, for example, there are some restrictions that we were previously we were able to help people. For example, if you are in a subsidized housing and you are in danger of losing, and correct me, Laura, if I'm wrong, we cannot help them. It doesn't make any sense, but these are the rules and regulations. So in that sense, that has helped. What we see, the people may have reduced, but more people are returning.
Thank you very much.
Chair?
Yes, please.
I did visit your facility, and I did speak to Laura. I don't know if you remember that or not, Laura.
Of course I do.
Oh, that's great. That's nice to hear. And I know that you have a deep commitment to serve the city's low-income individuals and families. I think you do a great job, and hopefully, we could fund you as close to as possible to your request.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Well, welcome and congratulations.
Thank you.
You've done the good work for a long, long time, and I know you've kind of scaled down and continued, though, with the Loaf and Fishes, which is the only program of its kind in the city. And I just had a question about the HMIS report that you prepare for the city. Exactly what is that?
It's a computer program that you have to input. Laura probably can address a little bit more, but the city has been very helpful because what the HMIS was originally designed for the homeless. Since this is not a homeless program, but it's a homeless prevention, people are not homeless. So it's a challenge that we continue to work with the cities, and the city staff is also beginning to learn and make some adjustments to the program. So it has taken a little time. So it's a computer program, data collecting program.
So that's how you can determine your 25,000 household survey?
No, the household, those are Catholic Charities has an internal system of collecting data. It's also computerized. We call it CMS. So that $25,000 people that we collect is the information that we collect and then input into the computers through volunteers and staff. That's how we collect, keep our own internal data. So there are two different kind of datas.
And welcome to your new executive director. Nice to look forward to meeting you.
Thank you very much. Guess there is no further questions.
Thank you.
And good luck to you, and welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
About the forms.
Fill out the forms. Next agency, please.
The 9th agency is Armenian Relief Society of Western USA, Inc., for the Community Outreach Project.
Good morning, CDBG Advisory Committee members and staff. My name is Talarain Tablian, and I'm here on behalf of the Armenian Relief Society Social Services. Joining me today is our Executive Director, Sona Zanzalian, as well as Lena Karagosian, who's our Program Coordinator and Instructor. ARS Social Services is requesting CDBG funding in the amount of $66,153 for the 2014-2015 fiscal year for our community outreach project. The program is targeted at servicing low to moderate income individuals in the city of Glendale who are primarily immigrants and refugees with language barriers. The requested funding will allow our organization to provide the following services: Life Skills English as a Second Language classes for 120 senior citizens who will have the opportunity to develop their English language proficiency skills and receive health and safety practice information. Classes are held twice a week at 2 levels, and their focus is on basic English and safety net services. Individual youth and family counseling for 35 individuals who will receive services from multilingual therapists. Job search assistance for 35 individuals who will receive employment referrals and assistance with resume preparation and job search techniques. As detailed, 190 unduplicated clients will be able to benefit from our vital services, which continue to be of great demand in our community. While this project meets the program priorities of employment, ESL senior services, and counseling, I'd like to emphasize that beyond these services, our program coordinator offers general social services to meet the needs of over 1,000 individuals in the city of Glendale on an annual basis. With our main office in Glendale, our additional services are of great benefit to Glendale residents. In an effort to highlight the impact of these services, I'd like to draw attention to some recent figures from the current fiscal year. In the 6-month period between July through December of 2013, we had a 93% completion rate for our ESL life skills classes. Also, most of the individuals referred to counseling have reported improvement, and individuals receiving job search assistance have found employment or have cases pending. These success rates are highly indicative of the positive outcomes that result from our services, and our offices receive constant inquiries to enroll in these classes and seek employment and counseling services. ARS Social Services is committed to a simple guiding principle, that is to lend a helping hand to all those in need, and by doing so, we're able to better their lives and their circumstances. As a leading organization with vast knowledge regarding our community's needs, ARS Social Services is unique in that it offers services in a linguistically and culturally competent manner in order to best serve our clientele. We're proud that our organization is well respected and trusted in this community, having operated within the City of Glendale CDBG program for decades. We value our close collaboration with the CDBG program and staff, and humbly request to receive consideration for our full funding request in order to continue offering the full scope of our services. The funding remains vital to our operations in the City of Glendale. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Ramirez. Any questions?
Well, I was just kind of writing notes here. Thank you for coming. I am very familiar with this program and glad to see it funded at its highest level. And I maybe shouldn't say that, but you do outstanding service, and I think that you do understand the needs of this community. So I have no questions.
Thank you.
Commissioner Tashian.
Well, I had to visit ARS twice because one time wasn't enough to comprehend and absorb the type of services that you provide. So that's why I went twice. I just don't know what to say. I mean, if you look at the proposals, the staff noted no weaknesses whatsoever, plenty of strengths, and I wholeheartedly support the programs that you offer at ARS.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Armenian.
I have a couple of questions. Can you comment a little bit further about the diversity of the clientele who take advantage of your services?
The target population, like I indicated, and so most of the clients that we see are an immigrant population. A lot of refugees come into the office, basically trying to get reacquainted with the culture in this new society that they're now a part of. Immigrants and refugees are a big base of the population that we see. A lot of Middle Eastern immigrants, mostly adults, youth, of course, seek our services primarily for the job search assistance as well as for the counseling services that we offer. Senior citizens are very eager about our basic life skills and ESL classes. We receive constant inquiries to enroll in the classes and interest as to when the next session will be so they can enroll if they haven't already. So it's a broad range of clientele.
And it's, I know your name is Armenian Relief Society, but your clientele is not just of Armenian.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Services are offered to all those who approach us that are in need.
Okay.
I just want to add, like, everybody is aware that people are coming.
Can you go to the mic?
Microphone, please.
Oh, sorry. My name is Sona Zinzalian. Everybody knows me. So I have to add that now that all the refugees, the newcomers, you know, that they're coming to U.S., it's from Iraq, speaking Arabic language, and we speak Arabic language. People coming from Egypt, and a lot from Egypt and from Syria. And we asked them, where do you hear? They said, from our churches, from our neighbors. So word to mouth, you know, and our success and the outcome that they're receiving our clients, they're spreading the news. Just to give you an example for citizenship, that it costs to apply for citizenship, it's more than $600. And then because they're low-income individuals and families, we write a waiver. They don't pay a penny.
Wow.
Yes. And we do all these services, as you know, it's free. This is just one example, you know. And for the jobs, you know, as a babysitter, because they have to come and learn, you know, the American life and have an experience as a provider or working in a gas station or any places, they come to our office. As you guys, you visit, you see the wall, it's full of the jobs, you know, that they can come and write the address and the name and go and apply. We sent like 3-4 people per jobs, and then the employer will choose which one. So, and we have a Spanish-speaking caseworker. We speak Russian, Farsi, all the languages needed, you know, beside Armenian, English, or Arabic, you know. Really, because we are one center equipped linguistically and culturally, we help all these individuals. And in-house, we have the counseling. In-house, we have that computer classes looking for the job. You know, we prepare them mentally and, you know, to the job market, telling them how to write a resume, where to look for a job, how to be present there, you know. We prepare them. They call us a small lawyer. They call us a priest, you know, where they come and confess. They don't, I'm sorry, because these people, they come from, you know, a country that they don't trust the government, but they trust us here.
One final question is, how do you partner with other organizations?
We have close collaboration with a lot of other local organizations. We receive and give referrals. For example, we have a lot of homeless individuals who have been recently reaching out to our organization. So local organizations such as Essentia, et cetera, are prime examples of organizations that will refer such individuals to. Catholic Charities, and a lot of community centers, local churches, all of whom we distribute our flyers to and conduct the most amount of outreach that we can in order to let the community know about the availability of our services.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I think recently you just started collaboration with Glendale Adventist in your senior program.
Yes.
Senior program, health education, and all of that. Thank you for all you do.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
You have
you.
a very well-respected program you have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's complete the forms. Next agency, please.
The 10th agency is City of Glendale Community Services and Parks for the Senior Services Program.
Good morning. I'm Maggie Kavarian with the City of Glendale Senior Services Program. Our program, along with my colleague John McGoggin, who's one of our case managers, and Eileen Asayan, who's our other case manager, we've been serving the seniors in the City of Glendale for over 27 years as a safety net program. We serve a very specific type of group. We serve homebound seniors. These are the seniors who can't come to our center, who can't come and see us. And it's not just the seniors we serve, it's the families that call us from out of state or from out of town who need assistance for these seniors. Along with landlords and neighbors and police officers and fire who always reach out to us and give us those referrals. Our program provides intensive case management for seniors along with home-delivered meals. So it's their nutritional needs that are met. Our case managers go in and help them with transportation issues, housing issues if they need. Sometimes they live on the second floor and they just cannot get around anymore. And we try to find housing for them that's first floor, it's more ADA compliant. And those are the services we provide to them. We would love to see them maintain their independence and even possibly restore their independence. And when they do restore it, they do come to our hub, which is the Adult Recreation Center where we're housed. And that is really the concentration of many seniors that live there. It's about a 21% population of seniors that live around that area. And we also provide recreational programming and other services that our Parks Department provides to seniors and the community. And this is really what we do. A lot of hoarding issues, lots of different types of questions that come about, but mainly nutrition and transportation, health concerns, medical, legal, a lot of benefits enrollment, a lot of questions now about Covered California, things like that that come up.
Thank you. Commissioner Tashjian, would you start with your questions?
I don't have any questions as opposed to comments. I did visit your site. I brought my dad. He really enjoyed it. And I think the population of senior citizens in Glendale is growing. I think it's probably over 40,000 right now. And there's absolutely a need to serve these senior citizens. There's no doubt whatsoever in my mind. The funding that and obviously the mission, the goal is to have them be self-sufficient and stay in their homes. The funding that you're requesting is for a Spanish-speaking case manager. And can you just give us a reason why that's so?
Well, as you see, our case managers they speak Armenian, and they speak English, of course, but we don't have a Spanish-speaking case manager. We have a part-time case manager who we pay out of our current CDBG budget. We'd like to continue this because we do see a growth of Spanish speakers who need our assistance, about 30%.
Okay, so there's about 7,200 to 7,500 that are Spanish-speaking. And why don't you have a Spanish-speaking case manager?
Because our Spanish-speaking case manager retired during our restructuring in 2010, and we did have one.
Any more? Okay. Commissioner Armenian?
Just continuing along Commissioner Tashjian's line of questioning, so you're seeking someone for Spanish because of the retirement. You guys handle Armenian. What about other backgrounds? Or do you not have that need?
Our main needs are the English-speaking, Armenian-speaking, and Spanish-speaking, really. That's our population.
Population is focused on that. Thank you. And one other thing is, I noticed that compared to previous funding requests, you're requesting less this year. Is that because your need is less, or?
The need is not less, the need remains the same. We know that the funding is less overall, and we were just trying to be more realistic with that. And we know that currently what we're doing is working for us. There is a slight wait list for the Spanish-speaking clients, and we had asked for, I think we received 16 or 17,000 this year, and we're asking for a little bit more, so that is a good cushion for next year, we think.
And then I know this issue comes up, and I don't know whether you can answer this or staff can answer this question, but the question comes up, I think, when the city is a grant requester, given the other resources that the city has compared to a nonprofit that might have less other resources to tap into. Can maybe staff comment about why you approach it this way, where you are also requesting grants from CDBG versus working this sort of needs into your general budget?
Vice Chair Markarian, members of the Commission, we have budgeting for certain service levels. In order to expand service levels or to keep up with demands, we would apply for CDBG funds, and especially for programs that are identified as CDBG priorities, such as elderly and youth, for example. And so without the additional infusion of CDBG funds, these programs will not be able to be expanded, or our service levels will not be able to meet the demands that are in the community or increasing in the community. And you're right, it would be a matter of having to take funds from another program or operation in the department to divert to the senior case management program, and that would be very difficult to do.
And this is over and above pre-designated funds that already come out of HUD funding?
There are no pre-designated funds for social service programs. The only pre-designated funds identified by the City Council are for capital improvement projects. But the social service funds are competitive, and as you know, the city departments have to, for lack of a better term, compete with community organizations for the merits of the programs.
Okay, so code enforcement, where does that come out of?
That's under the capital improvement category.
Thank you.
So that's pre-designated as a capital improvement project, yeah, not a social service.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. What are the hours of your center?
Our hours of the center are Monday through Thursday, 8 to 8 p.m., and then on Fridays, 8 to 5 p.m., and then on the weekends, on Saturdays, we're open from 8 to 5, and Sundays we're closed, but we're open for our senior nutrition program only from 9 to 1.
So you have seniors there throughout the day?
7 days a week, yeah.
Because I visited and it was pretty packed in the morning. So does that continue throughout the afternoon as well? Very good. Any further questions?
Please, thank you.
Yes.
The $20,775 you request is for one part-time, 24-hour-a-week bilingual case manager for the largely Spanish-speaking population that you have. Now, if you don't get that type of funding, what is the minimum that you could be able to accept and run this program that at least helps out those who are Spanish-speaking? What's the minimum that we're looking at?
Well, what we have now, which is about 16,700, and I know we have a slight wait list. We have a wait list of 15, so we know that it's pushing it at this point. So we know that that should be pretty much it. Between 15,000 to 17,000 would probably work.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Ramirez?
I just wanted to note that it seems that we have laid off, and one retired, and you laid off a part-time and an office service specialist. Were those Spanish speakers?
Actually, one of the laid-off part-time employees was a Spanish speaker.
So I think what we were wanting to do is maybe get back to a little bit of equity. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll continue with the next agency, please.
The 11th agency is Glendale Youth Alliance for the Youth Employment Program.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Karina Gregorian. I'm with the Glendale Youth Alliance. For the past 21 years, Glendale Youth Alliance has been providing comprehensive case management training and employment services to the youth of our community. We currently operate 5 programs, serve 350 youth on an annual basis, and have made a significant difference in the lives of over 7,000 youth in our community. There are currently 3.5 million low-income youth between the ages of 16 to 24 in the United States who are neither in school or employed. Based on CDBG Community Needs Assessment that was conducted in September, youth employment programs, after-school services continue to be a priority for our community, and that's what GYA provides. Jobs really do change lives. Youth are off the street, they're reducing the crime rates, becoming productive members of our community. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services states that students that do not participate in extracurricular activities are 49% more likely to use drugs and 37% more likely to become teen parents. GYA has successfully administered 17 CDBG grants. We have a proven history of operating youth programs and making a difference in our community. And if I may, I would like to introduce Jeff Thomas to share his experience with the Glendale Youth Alliance.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Good morning, guys. My name is Jeff Thomas. I'm an hourly city worker for Glendale Youth Alliance. Prior to me working here, I was working for a part-time job, driving long distance, not making the cut. So I had a friend that was actually involved with GYA that involved me into applying. I went ahead and applied and started with being a team youth supervisor. Once I got on board, we did the summer brush program, and I worked close with the youth and supervise them as well, being with the other team supervisors, learn different things on the field and stuff. After that, I got promoted to the Public Works Division, so currently now I'm with Environmental Response. And GYA has actually helped me a lot since February of 2012, just with everything, getting my forklift certificate, my commercial driver's license, and there's a couple of certificates that I have on hand. But GYA has helped me a lot with just getting here, and it's a great program. I wouldn't be here without GYA, and that's it.
That's great. Wonderful.
If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer it regarding the application or the organization.
Thank you. Commissioners, Armenian, would you like to start?
Yeah, I guess I'll ask a question. If you don't get the funding levels that you've requested, kind of how would you modify your program to take advantage of what you do receive, if you receive any?
We'll try to leverage the funding with other sources, but if we can't, then ultimately it'll affect the number of youth we can serve. We'll have to cut the service levels.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Just had a question. In particular, it said students are recruited, and with the large demand for employment, Wouldn't you be counting on referrals?
We do. We work very closely with a lot of the agencies within the community, whether it's the homeless agencies or the police department, the school district. We have close relationships with a lot of the school counselors. So priority is given to the youth that are referred through the agencies and have various needs for the services or barriers. But we always have a waiting list for the program, and we do different recruitment for each of the programs, and try to serve as many youth as we can.
I had noticed that you had said somewhere in here it was a first come, first served basis, so.
It is, but priority is given to
referrals?
Referrals and youth with barriers or additional needs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Tashian.
Thank you. I did visit Glendale Youth Alliance. I don't think you were there at that time.
No, I was out.
I think I spoke to Ida and Lisa.
Yes.
So I'm pretty familiar with your program, and I know the type of employment that you offer during the summer months. You do get additional funding from the city, correct?
We get very little funding from the city, and we do apply for grants. 40% of our budget is grant-based. The remaining is revenue that we generate through the youth programs. So 2 of our programs are revenue-generating enterprise programs, which means the youth do the work and we bill either the work site or the customer for the youth wages. One is very similar to an employment agency. The other is more labor-intensive. Youth are hired by private property owners or city departments to do brush clearance or physical labor tasks, and we bill them for the youth wages.
Thank you.
A question on, and where do you get the funding for the supervisor? I'm sure you're seeing a supervisor with them?
Yes, all the youth are supervised, and it's part of our budget, our program costs.
Do you get a percentage from, say, this particular one that pays for a certain amount of supervision? Or is that comes just from other
Each of the
other
programs
sources?
are structured differently. So the youth that work in the enterprise programs, we bill for the supervisor wages as well.
Okay.
Cover the cost.
I have one question. So it states that you serve 50 to 80 youth annually. Are these duplicated or new members that join?
Some of the youth have been through other programs, but others are brand new.
So what percentage brand new? I know you have a waiting list for some who apply as newcomer.
I would say 50% are youth that have already been in the program, and 50% are new youth coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And then our goal is to get them enough training and experience to move on to permanent employment. We don't want to keep them in our program for a long time.
Right. Yes, if there's no questions, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for all your support.
Absolutely. Next agency, please.
The 12th agency is Ascensia for the Homeless Outreach Case Management Program.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Natalie Kamuro. I'm the Executive Director of Ascensia. I want to thank you for this opportunity to present the Community Development Block Grant request that we have for the Street Outreach Program. I have today with us our outreach team, Alfred Hernandez and David Broadway, and one of our clients, Dennis. If you could come on up. And I'll have them tell their story about what we do for this program, and then we'll take your questions after.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, please.
Good morning. My name is Alfred Hernandez. I'm the lead outreach case manager for Ascensia, and I just want to give a quick summary of this third quarter of the people we've helped and we made contact with. So far, we've made contact with 137 individuals, unduplicated individuals. Out of the 137 individuals, 76 came into our Ascensia Access Center and participated in an intake. Um, 12 of those 76 were housed in a year-round shelter. 4 were permanently housed. 3 were transported to a psychiatric hospital. 5 were transported to treatment, and 2 are pending housing, permanent housing right now. That's just a quick summary since our winter shelter started. And I'm going to turn it over to David.
Hi, my name is Dennis. I'd just like to tell you that without Essentia, I would probably still be on the streets. They showed me avenues I could take. They got me on GR first, and they gave me shelter, and they helped me get my SSDI. But without them, I was totally lost. I was laid off from my job. I was making $20 an hour, and when I was laid off my job, my wife wanted a divorce. So it was like the whole world just collapsed on me. I was even turned away by my father. The only one that stayed in the family with me was my sister and Essentia. They were the ones that helped me. Without their help, I'd still be out there on the street. Now I have an apartment in Tujunga. I live with a girl. We have a good relationship, and we're getting through very well month to month, and we'll have a good life. Any questions I can answer for you? I would. A little nervous.
It's okay. It was a good, heartwarming story. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, ma'am.
So David, perhaps you could tell a little bit more about how you found Dennis and what you were able to do for him.
Sure. I first met Dennis at the winter shelter last year at the Armory on the first day of the winter shelter. And he seemed totally lost. He didn't know what to do to get out of his situation. So I started to work with him on the same day, asking him questions and how I could help him. And so I had to work with him from ground up because he didn't have anything. Like he didn't have no ID, no income, no means of transportation. So I had to help him, work with the DMV, help him with the paperwork, with everything, help him with the DMV. Then I got him connected with DPSS, the Social Security. I got him to come and do an intake at Ascensia until he got sheltered with us. Then while he was there, he was able to save his money. Then I helped him find an apartment that he could afford. So we, as outreach, we help people from ground up, from the beginning all the way to until they're housed.
Thank you.
So one of the aspects of this is that when you have somebody like Dennis who is making $20 an hour, these are people who don't know what the safety net looks like. They've never had a need for it. And so when you have a crisis and they have nowhere to go and they don't know what to do, it is really a matter of building from the ground up, educating them about what's available to them and helping them make the kind of choices that they're going to need to get out of homelessness. Now, in some ways, he's not a typical example because the other thing that I think is important about what this team does is they have a good record of moving people into treatment. We have a lot of people who are chronically homeless on the streets who have acute and chronic illnesses and also addiction that they have to address. And Alfred is a certified substance abuse counselor and is very effective at moving people off the streets into residential treatment programs where we can then begin the work of moving them forward into permanent supportive housing. We operate this program because it's part of our mission for what we do, but the benefit to the community is really tangible. We get calls on a regular basis from businesses and from residents who are concerned about the people that they see on the streets of Glendale, whether they're in the parks or they're in the alleyways and so forth. We also work closely with the local hospitals to identify patients who are homeless who are in need of the wraparound services and housing placement to interrupt that cycle of readmission and recidivism from the hospital to the streets. So this project is a really integral part of what we are able to do. They are supported by our Access Center, and it leverages a lot of additional federal funding. So thank you for your consideration of this request.
Thank you. Questions?
I do have some questions.
Please.
Thank you. I see a great deal of homeless people on the street. You just drive down Broadway or Colorado, you'll see them at church parking lots, you see them in alleyways, you see them at the library, at parks. It's a problem. And a lot of these homeless people that I notice, and this is because some of them end up being arrested, and some of them end up being charged with trespass or with drug charges or even battery charges, have drug issues, have mental health issues, but they're out there. And how do you reach out to these individuals? I mean, I see them, you must see them, your staff must see them. I mean, how do you reach out to them? And some of them, even if you do reach out for them, they're not going to go to your services. They're going to say, no, we don't want that. So what do you do with that?
We keep at it. We keep going back. I think Alfred and David both can tell you many a story where they've had to repeatedly go and talk to someone before they can finally convince them to accept the help. We have a man that now lives in housing who we spent 3 years trying to engage. 3 years. And we even had a housing unit for him, and he ran away. He wasn't ready. He wasn't ready to accept that help. And we're not in a position to compel people to accept help, and so that's part of the challenge. But when they are ready for help, you want to be able to be present and able to help facilitate that change for them. And so that's exactly what the outreach program does. It is an investment in a long-term engagement that will definitely pay off dividends when people are ready to accept help. And I think what speaks to the effectiveness of what Alfred and David do is that they are able to get people who have been on the streets a very long time to finally say yes. But I will be, honest. I mean, one of the reasons you do see so many people out there is they're not ready. There are people who are not ready to say yes. That's one of the issues. The other issue is the utter lack of resources. We have such an incremental number of housing units to move people into, to get them off the streets, that progress can be very slow. And it's easy for some of these folks to get discouraged. They're tired of waiting. They don't believe the help is going to come because there aren't that many housing units available to them. So it's a lot of cajoling on our part and trying to identify the resources at the time that person is ready to take them. But it's a continuing challenge, absolutely.
Okay, so you get calls from, let's say, businesses or individuals. Hey, listen, there's someone out here. You need to come and pick him up or talk to him or try to get him into your services. Is there any other agencies or organizations that likewise call you, like, for example, Glendale Police?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we have a very close relationship with the police department. We work closely with the fire department. Fellow agencies, particularly right now because we operate the winter shelter program, we've had local businesses that were impacted by the fact that they're just people in the area, so we've gone out to those locations on a regular basis to make sure that people know that they can't hang out and loiter. We do try to get people to find constructive things to do with their day, but we work very closely with city libraries, city parks, and then obviously with law enforcement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ramirez.
My turn. Welcome.
Thank
Are
you.
you the executive director?
I am. I'm sorry, I didn't fully introduce myself. I am.
Okay. Well, it's good to see that the city is committed to this homeless condition that we have here, and little by little addressing it, and one day eliminate it, by golly. In terms of the services, I have no questions, but I do have a question regarding the financials, and I think that's appropriate, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have an excellent board, I see, and excellent minutes. But one thing that I noticed from your auditor, and in terms of what you profess to do, is to ensure maintenance and appropriate internal controls and financial procedures. Mm-hmm. And your auditor pointed out last year that there was a deficiency in how you kept time, employee
yes.
time. And then it wasn't addressed. This year, he says, sorry, but the item has not been sufficiently cleared, and it was a repeat finding. And that's serious, I think.
Well, we've had a real struggle with this because of the way that the city monitors our contracts and how we have to provide our time records to them in a way that shows the allocation, because we are not permitted to amend the budgets that we have. So we endeavored to try and spend out the grants in a consistent way. But we did look at this again, because we did look at it the first time, but we weren't able to come up with a solution that we found workable. We have revisited it, and then we've actually begun implementing a new standard. So I think we will be, we've addressed the concern. I don't think there'll be a finding in our next audit, but, will remain to be seen. But I think that the method that we're choosing now should address what concerns the auditor expressed previously.
And I think what the auditor is trying to say, that the basis of his report, and this is a separate report from your general report, is that they have to report this based on government standards. And so that not only to the city, but this, kind of sticks out in terms of how are you using your funding. And for this committee, when we're assessing where to send the funding, then it has to meet the criteria. And I just it was something that really stuck out at me, because the board says they approved it, but what did they approve? It was discussed, but and then in your report it isn't mentioned. So it's just a concern that I had, and I thought maybe I should point out to you.
Okay, but it has been addressed, and we're addressing it currently. So it will in the next
show up
audit
in the
report.
next
Exactly.
audit?
Right. Right.
Commissioner Armenian.
A couple questions. Do you find that you are encountering situations with language barriers?
Not, excuse me, not to a great extent, I would have to say.
Can you please?
Okay, so Alfred. Okay. Alfred is saying that he speaks Spanish and English. David is fluent in French and English. If we have a need for Armenian, then we do seek additional assistance in that translation. We have, and I should also say, internally in the agency, we have a capacity for Chinese, Korean, and Portuguese, and German. So,
do you find a lot of cases where you have people who speak any of those languages?
It's been negligible. It's been, most people have they have some capacity to speak in English, or they bring. We've had clients bring their own translator. They bring a friend or a family member.
Are people from those groups not taking advantage of your services?
I would have no way of measuring that. I don't.
But you're not finding that they're coming to you.
I'm sorry?
Do you feel that there's the need out there for those? Are there people in those groups that are not coming because they don't feel like they can get the help from you?
I haven't heard that. We have very good relationships with numerous organizations in town, and so if they have someone who's homeless, we tend to be the go-to agency. So if you've heard something differently, I'd love to know that, but I haven't heard it.
Okay. And then my other question is, how do you track people that you are able to help and kind of move along? How do you track to make sure that the people you have helped aren't kind of relapsing into the old problems?
We have a coordinated entry system with homeless management information system. So we have people who are entered into a database, and we're able to find out if they do recidivate. It's going to show up when we open up their file. So we have that manner of checking it.
If they come back,
if they come back to us,
right?
It's sometimes we're able to see in other systems, because Glendale's its own continuum of care system, and then there's the Los Angeles system. Otherwise, we'll if they disclose, then we can talk to another provider to find out what the relationship had been with that client.
So it's more from the angle of someone kind of ends up back in the system versus you touching base to see how they're doing.
Well, we do actually follow up with home-based case management for over 60 households through our permanent supportive housing programs. So there is that. But for people who come through the Access Center and don't use our other permanent housing programs, some do come back. They'll come back for therapy sessions, and so we'll keep tabs on them that way. But many people, they're ready to move on, and so they don't necessarily check back with us once they've left the nest, if you will.
Thank you very much.
All right. I see that you collaborate with many organizations, the Catholic Charities, Pat Venture, Verdugo Job Center. What is the window? I mean, if you were to help someone, you say what's the time frame of someone really receiving the help, getting back on their feet, and moving on? If you had to say months, weeks, years?
Well, because we are open to anyone who is homeless, it really runs the gamut. So we have some people who are able to be in our shelter and get back on their feet within 45 days. I think the average was about 61 days. But then we have other people who really, really struggle, and they have a lot of hurdles to overcome, and it can take months and even years. And as I mentioned at the outset, we've had clients that we've worked with for a period of years to get them off the streets. So it really depends on, their economic capacity to earn a living, to the disability. We have people who are mentally ill who, as you know, mental illness isn't a linear trajectory, so they may have episodes where they decompensate, and so we're 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So I can't, to give you an average wouldn't really tell the story. Yeah.
And you recently relocated to it,
We
right?
did. We did. We moved to Tyburn Street.
My daughter and her friends actually came by and visited the place during Thanksgiving, and they were so impressed, and that it was a great experience for them to give back. And they baked cookies, I don't know, and this is something that if we get our youth involved to really give back to the community and do collaborative work with agencies like yours.
Oh, yes, thank you. And I remember they brought a lot of cookies. And we had, we've been very well supported by St. Francis, from the National Charity League, and other Boy Scout and Girl Scout troops. We get wonderful support from youth and their families, as well as businesses and congregations who come as guest chefs. We really do appreciate that.
Doing a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I caught an error actually in our proposal, which is that last year we did not get $30,000. It was $26,678, and I just wanted to make that change for a record. It's not a huge difference, but it bothered me.
No,
We have the correct number here.
Oh, you do have the correct number. Okay, because my copy.
Corrected it.
You corrected it. Okay, well, thank
Yeah.
you for that, because I looked at it and I was like, that doesn't sound right. So.
Staff report, it was corrected.
Yes. Okay.
I do have one question. Since you brought up the winter shelter program, it's called the Glendale Winter Shelter Program. And I know it's from December to March. How many individuals are in that program? How many are from Glendale?
On any given night, we have 80 people residing there. I don't have the latest figures, but percentage-wise, was it 40%? Does that sound about right? From Glendale specifically, about 40%. This is funded as a regional program. The funding comes from the City and County of Los Angeles, and so we prioritize people from Glendale, but we also have people coming from Burbank and outside the area. Cumulatively, we expect it'll be several hundred, I think we're over 300 right now, of unduplicated participants.
Thank you. Question, do you get funding from Burbank?
We get a small grant to provide street outreach to them. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Next agency.
Madam
We
Vice
have-
Chair, we are running a little ahead of time. I don't see the agency number 13 here yet, but we do have number 14, which is the Glendale Police Department Students Training as Role Models STAR.
We can move to 14. Is that okay, everyone?
Sure.
Okay. Hello, everyone.
Thank you.
Hey.
I do have a slight PowerPoint from the officer. Tell me when you're ready.
We're ready.
We're ready. Go. My name is Alex Z. I'm a police officer with the City of Glendale. I assist with the STAR program. Officer Rebecca Jackson, she is the lead officer. She couldn't make it today. And we also work with Officer Vahe Abramian. I'm sure you guys are well aware of the STAR program. We are an after-school program. We meet every Tuesday from 3 to 6:30 p.m. Currently, we do have 21 students. They range from ages 9 to 14. We are a police program, but we don't just teach about the police. We teach about leadership, mentoring, and becoming positive members of the city. During our our Tuesday meetings, which is every Tuesday, the first hour involves them doing homework, and we help them with their homework. We tutor them in the subjects, make sure they complete their homework. The next hour consists of physical activities, and we try to enforce team building amongst the kids to teach them how to work alongside each other. We do have a sit-down meal. So I know some families these days do not, including mine when I was a kid, we don't usually sit down with mom and dad anymore at the dinner table. So we do that with the kids. We have a sit-down meal with all their children and the staff members, and we spend about a half hour doing that. And then afterwards, we do have a lesson plan. And the lesson plan, some subjects are police-related and some aren't. It could be, and we'll have guest lectures from within a police department, but we'll also have outside members of the community speak about these various subjects. And the goal is for them to join a program when they're 9 or 10, and then work, be with us for a few years, and then graduate when they're 14 and go on to high school. And our goal is to obviously make them lead in the right direction, become positive members of the community, and try to avoid any type of criminal activity. Including the Tuesdays weekly meetings, we do have a Saturday outing. These outings are some more fun outings, Knott's Berry Farm or whatnot, but we also have service outings where we link with outside organizations. We'll help clean up litter or remove graffiti. So the funding we're asking is for our part-time employee who works for Parks and Recreations, Aaron Castillo. He handles a lot of our heavy footwork, our paperwork. I'm going out to various businesses within the community to obtain food, discounted rates at various outings, and also the remaining funds we'd like to use for our outings itself, primarily for the meals. And we do try to get discounts from various organizations or wherever we're going. We try to ask for any type of group rates, try to save money.
Do you have a PowerPoint you mentioned?
You want me to?
There's only a few slides. Part of our Tuesdays, every other month we go to Autumn Hills and we try to teach the kids about interaction with the elderly. And during like Halloween and Christmas, we have the children make type of crafts and we give them out to the elderly out there. Slide, please. Here's pictures of one of our fun outings at Pickwick, ice skating. I grew up in the city, from immigrant parents, and a lot of times, when I was young, we didn't get a chance to go to do fun activities or field trips. Next slide. Here we are, the upper left. We got a short field trip to our Air Bureau, to the Burbank Airport, to speak with our pilots from Glendale and Burbank Police Departments. They gave us a tour of the facility and a helicopter, and they did a quick PowerPoint and show us what they do up in the sky. And at the bottom, it's St. Patrick's Day meal. Next slide. This is one of the service outings I was talking about. We'll send them out to the beach with other organizations to help clean up the beaches. Or again, we do graffiti cleanup sometimes here in the city of Glendale. Every summer we do a 2-day camping trip. I went with them. My first time was 2 years ago, and it was my first time going camping. At 30s now, so a great opportunity for them to just spend a couple days away from home. The younger ones, 9 and 10, sometimes that's the first time they're away from their parents for that long. Good bonding experience. And again, like I said, after a few years with our program, when they're 14 and heading out to high school, they graduate from our program, assuming they don't get kicked out for any reason. They graduate from our program, and we do keep in contact with us. Officer Rebecca Jackson, who is our lead officer, she works as a school resource officer in Hoover High. And since these kids are in the same neighborhood, they get to see her even after they graduate. Try to keep in touch with them even after they leave our program.
Great, thank you. Great pictures. Questions? Commissioner Ramirez?
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Just wondering, how do you get your referrals?
A lot of times it's from family. We do have siblings, so they usually get priority. If not, most of the kids attend Edison, which is down by Pacific Park, Edison Elementary School, which is adjacent to our Pacific Park, which is our facility where we hold our STAR meetings. The teachers know about our program, and they'll refer students to us. Even though we do have, right now we have 21 students. We had, I think, 18 a few months ago, and we just got 3 new ones. We have a long waiting list, and unfortunately, due to staffing and budgeting, we can't fulfill all the way our 25 student maximum. But we do get referrals from teachers, the community, and word of mouth.
I think it's an excellent program. Would benefit all our kids.
Yeah, we try to reach as many kids as possible. Like I said, even after graduation, we still keep in contact. We have one of our graduates who graduated last year from our STAR program, and she currently graduated from the Explorers program with the City of Glendale. So she's continuing her service with the city through our Explorer program. Now that she's
As an officer one of these days.
I believe that's what she wants to do now. So.
It's great. Good work.
Great. Commissioner Armenian?
Yeah, I guess I'm going to ask a question a little bit from left field on this. I have no doubt about the need for these sorts of services. I guess my question goes to more of, why the police department is doing this sort of social service program as opposed to partnering with other organizations to do maybe one aspect of it that's kind of more in your wheelhouse versus doing everything from tutoring to camping trips and that sort of thing, which could be argued can be done by other nonprofits. I'm just curious as to kind of where the police department is going with the program, like why you versus other organizations?
The program has been with us since, I believe, 1995. We do partner with the Parks Department, with the City of Glendale, and we use the facility at the Parks and Recs Department, and we use their gym and their facility. Again, our hourly employee is a part-time employee with Parks and Recreations. So I don't know the origins of why STAR was implemented back in 1995, but being part of the police department, and we may be able to farm it out to other organizations, but with us, we provide them a little sense of what the police department is, the good and the bad. We try to create and since we help with the families too, we want not just the kids but the families to understand our department and not to maybe fear us or maybe misunderstand us. So we try to have an understanding with the kids and their families, and we do have a follow-up sometimes with the families, and we do assist with Christmas times. We try to find needy families, and they help out with the needy families. Any type of resources that the families need, if we can't help them out, we'll find resources to help them out. But not only is it a partnership with the police department, but like I said, our goal is not to make them into police officers, but to make them into positive members of this community. We're not teaching them to be police officers, we're teaching them about the outside world and maybe other things that the schools don't have time to show them.
Yeah, and I guess the source of my question is I think that there's benefits to what you do that go beyond or could be of great benefit to a lot of kids, not just the limited number that you can absorb within a program solely run by GPD. So it would be wonderful to see somehow projecting this sort of benefit to a larger number, maybe through partnerships with other organizations, maybe not the whole program, but I'm sure there's aspects to your program that are unique to what the police department can host, and others could benefit from it. So it was just a thought. I was wondering why, kind of where it started from and kind of
That's
where
true.
you're going with it.
Yeah, we do limit our, we have a maximum of 25 students, and that's based on just the amount of, just the budget and staffing. We have one volunteer. She's been volunteering since the beginning. And again, we have the Parks and Recs hourly to help us out, and his supervisor oftentimes helps us out when she gets a chance as well, too. Plus the 3 officers, the lead officer, myself, and Officer Abramian. Yeah, it'd be nice to reach out as many students as we can, but we are limited to 25.
And how do students learn about your program? How do you reach out? How do you communicate about the program?
How do we, like on a daily basis, or?
Yeah, I mean, if a family or a student were interested in your program, like how is it that they end up learning about your program?
They can come in and speak to one of us. They can come in and look at our lesson plans. I mean, our doors are open. Again, a lot of our referrals are word of mouth or from the siblings. Get a list of kids who want to, be in a program, whether they learned from their friends, from the schools. We get the list and we try to give priority to the siblings who are already in the program. So we try to, we do have siblings right now, brothers, sisters, cousins that are in the program because we want the families first. They get priority. And from there, it just branches off to word of mouth.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions?
Very briefly, I think it's always a good idea to have citizens and the police department working together towards certain goals, and I think STAR serves that purpose to a great extent, and particularly, developing students' potential as leaders and mentors, prevent drug use and gang activity. I think that's very important, and this is for ages 9 to 14. This is important, more important perhaps for that age group. But I do agree, and it also builds character. That's important. But I do agree with my colleague in that I don't see much of a partnership or corroboration with any other organization or facility. I think you mentioned parks, but perhaps that's something that could be developed at a future date, because I think partnerships and collaboration with other city and non-city agencies and organizations is also important. So in that respect, I do agree with my colleague on that point. But I think it's a great program. Thank you.
Thank you.
In the past, when they did the outings, and I'm not sure what you do now, but in the past, the outing is often funded through an outside source, and often even if you go out with somebody has a specialty, that's also an outside source, usually a community member. You did used to work directly with Catholic Charities, and I think New Horizons at one time. And through those connections, connected to the business community, where a lot of the extra food and all that other stuff does come from. So I think that in the background there are connections.
We do,
from what I understand.
Yes, ma'am. Aaron does, like I said, he does a lot of our footwork. So he does go to our local businesses to try to obtain, any donations, food donations. We do deal with a lot of businesses out there, and just like with the camps, it's a Christian camp that we try to go every year. Try to get in contact with organizations such as those.
Great. And I have a question. So how long is the actual program from start to graduation?
Well, it depends. They start at age 9 and 10, no older. So that's their time limit.
And they exit when they're 14?
They're 14.
So you may have one group of kids there for 3 years.
Yes. So there are kids right now that are 9 years old that just started their program. So our hope is to keep them in the whole program until they're 14, and then they move on to high school and go on from there.
But that limits you from recruiting new members, because if your resources only allow you to do 20 or 30 kids per year, so I just see that the length of the program, is just limiting your ability to serve more kids. Have you evaluated the length, the possibility of maybe doing this an annual? I mean, do they really need 4 years to learn what they need to learn?
Well, within those 4 years, we need to see them mature and grow. Kids, just like adults, they make mistakes and they have to get disciplined. And the same thing within our program too. So when they come in at 9 or 10, you're looking at, if they stay with the whole program, 4 to 5 years. And with those 4 to 5 years, you get to see them, mature, they grow up, and not only that, we got to also maintain they have to maintain, one of the rules for the kids is they have to improve their grades. So every quarter, we have to get their copies of the report cards. So we're only limited to 1 year. That's not much of a time frame. We need to see a few years for them to grow and mature.
This is 5 years, and my only concern is that, your resources will not allow you to recruit new, because you already have someone there for 5 years. I mean, that was my...
Yeah, but I mean, right now, their ages 9 to 13 right now. So this summer, maybe a couple that's going to graduate, and then we'll get a couple more from there. We fluctuate between 15 to 21. Right now, we're at 21. We had 18 for a while, and we were able to get 3 more. But like I said, we start 9 or 10, so hopefully in 4 to 5 years, we can see them mature and grow. But yeah, it does limit us to only, like I said, 25.
Well, I can make a comment.
Yes.
It functions like the scouting program.
Yeah. And it's a weekly program, correct? Once a week?
Yeah, once a week with one Saturday per month for the outings.
With no membership dues.
No membership dues.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This
Thank
is a
you very
great
much for your time.
program. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
All right. Take a moment to fill out the form.
Okay, next week.
Yes, please.
Next, we have City of Glendale Community Services and Parks Youth and Family Services Program.
Good morning, President Romella, committee members. My name is Walter Alvarez. I am the Community Services Supervisor for the Youth and Family Services Program that's under the umbrella of Community Services and Parks Department. The Youth and Family Services Program has been in the community for 11 years. This marks it's 11 years since its inception. What Youth and Family Services is, it's a program that provides information referrals, case management on an as-needed basis to youth and families, specifically high-risk and at-risk youth, as well as conducting outreach in the community and developing partnerships and collaborations with a lot of nonprofit agencies, delivering workshops, delivering services, and making services available to the youth in our programs. What I'd like to do today actually is walk you through a narrative of a youth, Michael, who I worked with for approximately 1.5 years, who came into our program. That way you get a good understanding of what Youth and Family Services is and how it operates. Michael came to us from the probation department. He was referred to us by probation. That's one of our partners. We partner with LA County Probation. Glendale has a lot of school-based youth, school-based probation officers, schools like Hoover, Glendale, and I believe also it's at the other continuation school, Daly. Michael came to us from Hoover High School. He was referred to us because he had been, involved in an assault charge. His mother came to us, said he needed assistance with Michael because he was becoming disruptive. Michael displayed, after a thorough intake, we realized he was failing school. He was not attending school regularly. He was involved with probation, had court mandates to complete community service hours, anger management programs, and mother had to be in parenting as well. Michael also had negative peer relations. He wasn't involved in any extracurricular activities. His parents couldn't afford any clubs, sports, AYSO because they were low income as well. We worked with Michael. After that thorough intake, we decided to engage him in case management services. What that required is that we outlined 5 goals in those specific areas for him that he had to meet in a specific time frame, meaning 3 months, 6 months. We went through it. the period went well above the 6-month period because Michael initially wasn't receptive to the services. Servicing youth is very challenging, especially the teenage population, which is who our program serves. 14 to 17. We also serve young adults 18 to 21 with minor children. We realize that if there's kids involved, we'd like to help young adults transition into the adulthood and make them conductive members. So Michael went through the process. We realized because of all the partnerships we have in the community with Glendale Unified School District, we worked with the school first. We addressed mom. We made mom understand that she could check up on the kids' attendance every day. We set her up with a online service that the school provides where parents could go on there and check their daily attendance, check their daily progress. So we worked with the school-based probation officer to say, we're going to track Michael's progress daily at school. This way mom's informed too. We gave her a password. She could go on there and check. We made her aware that the Pacific Community Center has a library available where she could go tap that resource. So that was one thing we addressed, school attendance. Grades improved slightly. Michael then, we linked them to community services programs, meaning that that's where our partners come in the social services in the community. We linked them to community service, anger management, and put mom in a parenting program. Different agencies. Again, because of the collaborations we have, the networks we have with these nonprofits, we were able to get them in. Then eventually, Michael worked at the Alex Theater. We checked on him daily, periodically, progress reports being provided to the probation officer and whatnot. Michael, again, went on outings, field trips, leadership camp outings, recreational programs. We got him involved in our community center programs, playing basketball, getting him more involved, making him more well-rounded. Michael then hit the age of about 17, and he was still kind of associating with a negative peer pressure at that point. And I said, well, something has to move him away from this. Mom said, let's get him a job. He's already at the age he should be helping out. The other thing is that when I would go to Michael's house, I realized Michael didn't have a bed. He would sleep on the floor. He had mattresses on the floor. We were able to provide him through Catholic Charities, was an agency that worked with us to be able to provide him the furniture, bed, vouchers to purchase those needs. Michael then, age of 17, we applied various jobs, opportunities, applications. He had gotten a call on a Friday that UPS wanted to see him for an interview. I worked with him, took him through the process of interviewing, and 2 weeks later, mom calls me on a Monday and said, unfortunately, Michael was involved in a shooting, and unfortunately Michael passed away. That same weekend, mother got a call saying that Michael had gotten hired by UPS as well. And I told myself we were that close to getting them away from that. And how do you put a price on that? I mean, it's one individual that we work with, and I tell myself, had we done more, had we had more resources, had we been there to create a stronger safety net, we would have helped them. And that's what Youth and Family Services does. We create a safety net for these youth through the various resources that are in the community. It's not just about one component, because we realize it takes a village. It really does take a holistic approach to understand these individuals and these teens today. They have various issues, and all these resources in the community are who we understand as a city, and we partner with them because they do have a vested interest in knowing that there's a support from the city who helps them out with their needs as well at the end of the day, and they work with our clientele, our community members. So again, our goal in Youth and Families is really to create safety nets and prevent these tragedies from happening later on for our young adults. It's not common. I mean, we don't hear it much in Glendale, thank God. You know, it has low crime rates, but it's one, and it's one too many. And you know, that one hit hard for me because I worked with Michael. And I told myself, wow, had we had more services, had we had more staff, had we had more to help, There's many kids like Michael. Not everyone is at that level. We do help. Our goal is to reach out to an estimated number of 20 youth, provide case management to 10, 15 youth a year. We provide information and referrals. In the past, we've hit up to 175 youth a year. We do have low numbers of staff at this point. It's myself and an hourly community services specialist. Her and I work with the kids. Our partners to outreach include Pasadena Juvenile Court, Probation Department, Glendale Unified School District. We attend the Student Attendance Review Board, and we're part of the Healthy Start Collaborative. Our program also publishes the Social Service Directory that's on the city's website. That's myself and volunteers, youth volunteers who work on putting these resources together, calling agencies and verifying their information. And again, it's a great program because I come from a social service background, and I understand that it's a good tie between Parks and Recreations and social services are linked. They work together to support the family. And
Thank you.
That's what I can
Thank you
say.
so much. Yeah.
Any questions?
For all you do. Questions, comments?
Want me to start?
Mrs. Ramirez, yes.
I just have one that comes immediately. Do your youth, are they involved in volunteer efforts?
Yes, that's part of the requirement as well. I mean, when we bring them in, we want to integrate them into community, and that's the best way. Through our department events, through our volunteer program. I'm the department volunteer coordinator. So I will process them. I will get them involved.
And they're willing.
And they're willing, correct. One requirement is community service is one, volunteer work is another. A mandate is one, get involved altruistically is another. So we do promote that. Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Tashjian?
Yes, thank you. Last year you had requested $39,275. This year you're requesting $25,000. Why the change down about $14,000, $15,000?
Because within the department, we're looking to reallocate some funding within our budgets to be able to offset some difference of cost. $25,000 will cover the full-time staff, and we're not willing to ask more. We understand there's other needs from other agencies. Mm-hmm. So we want to throw a realistic number. That was a realistic number, not to say it wasn't last year, but we scrambled because of budget reductions we have had in our department within the city. But right now, our manager said we'll be able to reallocate some funding to regrow this program, because it did encounter in 2008 a lot of budget reductions and a lot of staff reductions. And so we're looking to kind of slowly rebuild.
And the CDBG funds that you're requesting is for the salary of a full-time recreation program case manager. Is that correct?
It's a part-time hourly staff, actually.
Okay.
It would be in, I believe, 60% full-time equivalency.
Okay, and if you don't get that $25,000 funding that you requested, and you get something less than that, how's it going to be used?
How would what we use?
Well, if you don't get the $25,000 that you requested, you get less than the $25,000. How would that funding be used?
Oh, okay. That would go to hourly staff. It would just mean additional hours available for staff to be out there conducting the work that we need to conduct in our program, based on the hourly rate. Right now, if whatever we have within our department would be an equivalent to 10 hours a week, we get a percentage of that, and it may bump it up to 15 to 20 hours a week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Armenian?
Are there particular cultural backgrounds that tend to take advantage of your services more, or how do you address the diversity issue within the city?
We serve everyone. We have in the past had Armenian-speaking staff, Spanish-speaking staff in our program. Again, if we feel the need that there is additional languages we need to address, we do have a volunteer program. Sometimes we utilize our volunteers to be interpreters within our program. if that's the need. So there's always people that we could kind of have sit in the meetings with us and help communicate those issues and address those. And again, we do work with, it could be, for example, Didi Hirsch, some of our partners over there, who may have like our immunity program. If we feel that we can't provide that service for, whatever reason, then or cultural difference, understanding, comfort, then we'll work with those agencies to kind of partner up with and be able to deliver the service.
Where are you seeing the need, though? Is there a trend in any particular direction?
In the history of the program, unfortunately, I would say, it's been very Hispanic-based clientele. There's certain groups that have the financial standings that they could hire private attorneys versus in the criminal justice system, you get assigned a public defender. Sometimes they may not work to the best of their abilities, or for whatever reason. It tends to be Hispanic kids that are in our program, Latino kids. We do have a percentage of Armenian youth as well. But for the most part, it's all how the criminal system works. To some degree, that's for the high-risk kids. The at-risk versus high-risk, meaning kids who are involved in student attendance review boards and whatnot. Those are a bit challenging. Sometimes there's not acceptance of it's my child who's wrong, it's this child. It all depends on cultures and how they view their children.
Thank you.
Well, in the story you shared with Michael, and you said if he had the resources and you felt like you didn't. And today we interviewed 14 agencies who came up and they had all kinds of resources for youth at risk. Do you feel like we went through all the possibilities of connecting him? And I'm just finding this very tragic to have, missed an opportunity to help a youth at risk, where I'm sure you've tried everything, but as far as having more resources available, do you truly feel like we missed on that resource? Or
As Arabella, I don't mean there's a lack of community resources, because Glendale does have those community resources. I meant internally within our program.
I see.
We didn't have enough staff support. We could have been there more times for Michael. Case management is time consuming. It's almost like mentoring. It's mentoring programs. That's why we don't do mentoring, because it is a time-consuming process where the mentee and the mentor spend more time together, and they're able to communicate that. But sometimes, because we just kind of have to address every client within our program, we feel that our time is thin, and that's why I said internally our resources were limited to.
So do you feel, but you're taking advantage of the community resources? I mean,
yes.
Because you may be the agency receiving those calls and those cases, but if you're not capable, because of the resources, limited resources, to address those issues, so you feel like your agency is taking advantage of what's available in the community, because we would hate to see any opportunities missed just by connecting to the agencies that may have the resource. So, I mean, sometimes things are out of our control and it's out of our ability, and we just need to identify when we need to really make that move.
Correct.
To really,
One of the needs, I'd say, mentoring programs for teens. There is a lack of it. And I'll say we in our program, because we're constantly communicating with these agencies, start discovering some of the gaps and where they are. And one of those is mentoring programs for at-risk 14 to 17. There are not mentoring programs. The only one that has come back to the community again is AGBU, who is back, the Armenian General.
Yes, and
they're back, and it's great to have them back. They went away for a while, now they're back. If that's a need, like if there's a cultural need we can meet, then we'll refer to an agency that could work with them. But there is a lack of mentoring programs specifically for that age gap.
Just committee members, do you feel like this mentoring program, as he's mentioning, I didn't see that anyone addressing that as a specific program. Do you feel that there is a lack of that type of service? Maybe in the future we need to encourage agencies who are specifically focused on youth mentoring, not just certain specific areas, but focused on youth mentoring. Would that be something that we would welcome, to fund if they
I mean, I come across in a lot of youth, particularly in that category that you mentioned, which is like that early teens, tremendous need for youth mentoring, particularly when you look at populations who are coming from immigrant families where there might be a disconnect between what the parents can provide because of their own barriers and where the youth are kind of more integrated. Sometimes there's that disconnect and the parents can't provide that sort of step up, if you will, to get them going on the right path. And I think, we have a lot of, professionals in all the different communities within our city that I think if we could only find a way to match them up.
I agree.
With those sorts of youth, I think you would find that people in all sorts of professions are willing to give up some of their time if someone would just facilitate the program so that they can kind of come with their expertise and serve as a role model that would really boost the youth. I think it would boost it would kind of open up their eyes to the possibilities and the opportunities out there which they otherwise might not see. So I think that would be a great thing to focus on in the coming cycle.
Well, that's what Scouting does, and that's what Big Brothers does.
Yeah, I just think there's
And
more
I-
need for it,
Well,
there's the
but
opportunity
they're
to match volunteer
dues-oriented,
resources.
I agree.
In that kind of, like I said, there's a lot of professionals out there who would welcome, I think, the opportunity to, even if it's just one connection, right? If that's one youth that they end up mentoring. I mean,
Want to be a
any
big
given
brother?
year, I mentor 4 to 5 people that I kind of seek them out when I see the possibilities and I see that there's a gap there. I try and take time out of my schedule just to kind of give them career advice, help them along, coach them in trying to get into their first jobs and that sort of thing. And I think that's just my initiative, but imagine if it's on a more programmatic basis, I think we would find a lot of professionals out there who would be willing to give up some time.
Just keep it short. I know the STAR program has youth mentorship program, but I also wanted to find out from staff, is there a youth mentorship program other than what was discussed today? Is there something out there? You had mentioned AGBU. I don't know what AGBU does with the Youth and Services program. Perhaps you could elaborate on that, and perhaps Moises could elaborate on whether there is a youth mentorship program out there in the city.
Well, I guess the question is what you define as youth mentorships. There are youth case management as our Youth and Family Services program. There are youth leadership programs and youth support programs like ARC Family Center, which has in the past, for example, received CDBG funds. A program like Big Brothers, Big Sisters, which mentors kids on a formal basis. There is not one organization like that, I believe, my understanding, here in Glendale. However, there are, for example, Big Brothers, Big Sisters does recruit here in Glendale. I know because we have contacts with them, and the other organizations like that do recruit here in Glendale. But formally, a nonprofit-based mentorship with professionals and youth that hasn't been brought to our attention, or we've perceived a need, but doesn't mean that the need isn't out there. We just haven't been asked regarding that.
Mr. Durant, yes.
Vice Chair, Mark, members of the committee, I think you can argue that there are components of mentorship programs in a lot of the youth programs. STAR is a classic youth mentorship program where the police are the mentors for the young persons. We will. I think you can argue GYA, the Glendale Youth Alliance, provides a form of youth mentorship as the 14-year-olds come into the program and they start off clearing brush on the hillsides, but before they begin their job, they take, I think, a week of life skills because they really don't know how to work. It's their first job experience. And then they begin to graduate to higher levels of responsibility, as we heard from this young man. So that is a form of a youth mentorship program as well, or it has elements of that. I think what we can do with the Youth and Family Services program is make it a goal of the program to assist in coordinating all the youth mentorship programs, and maybe as part of our directory have a section just on youth mentorship programs, and make sure whatever components there are in the community that they are being connected, and that as we learn of new programs that we add those to a directory on youth mentorship. So.
Thank you.
And I guess my thing is, we tend to focus on where the more chronic need is, right, where it's at risk, and we try and direct them toward life skills, which of course all those things are foundational. The brush clearance, it's hard labor, right? But it kind of teaches them kind of a work ethic. One area that I always find that there's a gap, though, is that you got to give these kids a vision of what a future could look like. And so I tend to focus on that area of where, if you want to be a doctor, what does that look like? Well, go shadow a doctor for a day if it's possible, in some aspect, for an hour. You want to be a firefighter. What does it mean to be a firefighter? Go, so that you give them a more tangible vision of what that could be like, so that helps fuel their aspiration to be more than where they may be at. I think I see a huge gap there. I think we tend to, really focus on that chronic area, which of course is very important, because if you lose them there, then they could be gone. But part of it is also giving them the vision of, kind of what could life look like in the future, and start to give them those aspirational visions, and that can be brought to reality when you match them up with that professional who can maybe give them that feel of what it's like to be in whatever profession they may have an initial inkling that they may like.
Mm-hmm. Well, AGBU, Young Professionals, has that program. And I don't think they're geared in Glendale, perhaps. It could
probably
be.
Have a chapter now. They're all over.
I think those are the programs that are important.
Yeah. But I think also in cases of youth at risk or involved in, this certain disruptive behavior. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's what is another element of youth mentoring, not just mentoring the healthy kids, but also mentoring those that are at risk. And I kind of see that maybe there is a gap there, because I didn't hear much of the presentations around that. Not yours, but in general, today's presentations were not that much around. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Have a great day.
You too. We'll take a short break, and we'll be back around 1 o'clock.
Sure.
Thank you.
Lunch break.
Lunch break.
Sometimes we're losing our fan base, but no.
Good afternoon, and welcome back to CDBG Advisory Committee meeting of February 21st. This is our afternoon session. During our morning session, we interviewed 14 agencies who presented their social services programs and projects. Now, in the afternoon, we have a few hours to really deliberate and make a decision on how we are going to fund their requests. It's going to be very difficult, I think, again this year, as every year that we come to this time to deliberation. Almost all projects and services meet the CDBG requirements and the program priorities. So that's why it makes it more difficult for us to really make the decision. But I'm confident that my colleagues here are very skilled, and they've done their homework, and we're prepared to deliberate a fair allocation to these programs. So let's proceed. I think there are some changes from HUD that we may become notified of. Mr. Correa, do you have any updates on some of the changes, that possible changes?
Vice Chair Markarian, members of the committee, last October, when the CDBG Advisory Committee met and approved the CDBG proposed funding plan for 2014-15, staff had presented that the funding allocation was possibly being cut by the sequestration, which was an automatically cut that they had, that Congress had approved for a number of years. Since then, in January 2014, the White House and Congress made a deal not to cut the programs for 2014 through sequestration. So that 5% cut we were anticipating, we expect and hope that that funds will come back to the City of Glendale. With that in mind, we had projected about a 5 or 6% cut in CDBG. We again are thinking we're going to receive that 5% back in our allocation. It's not guaranteed. We have not received any written confirmation from HUD other than the general allocation for HUD overall across the country was increased, and how much we get from that is still a wait and see. It could be a couple of weeks or it could be another month. But staff, we feel confident that there's a strong possibility that we may have an extra $9,000 or $10,000 in CDBG funds for social service programs. And it's staff recommendation. The committee may want to decide on a contingency plan for allocating that extra funds. If they do come through in different ways, it could be some recommendations today, or it could be a follow-up meeting following this meeting to reallocate those funds. But we strongly feel that I know timing is the issue, and we want to get the application to HUD, so we maybe recommend a contingency plan today to allocate those $9,000 on in case they do come in.
Thank you. And just for our viewers, I wanted to let them know that the requested funding for fiscal year 14-15 is about $561,541. So $561 is what's been requested from us. 14 agencies, 14 programs, and what we have available today to work with and allocate is $263,000. So we're short of $298,000, and that's the challenge that we face every year. But we manage to do the right thing, and I'm sure today we will we'll try to do our best to allocate the numbers necessary for these programs to continue. We can proceed with just looking at what we have currently and the recommendations. So 14 agencies, and I think there is
A little difficult to see that on this angle. Can you see that?
Do we need to dim the lights a little bit, maybe, or is that what we did last time?
Are you having problems?
No, I mean, are you guys okay? Okay.
I have a problem seeing it, actually.
You do?
No. I don't have any glasses on. And now it's going to... Are you okay?
Yeah, I can see it.
Should have my glasses on.
A little better.
Well, if I need any assistance, I'll certainly ask my colleagues here.
Is that a little better?
I can't see that.
The last column is funding recommended. It's going to be empty, yeah.
Okay, so the second column is requested funding, the first column is current funding, and the last column would be...
Our recommendation.
Okay, got it. No, it's not. I mean, it's
That's
no,
good.
I mean, but it's not going to be blank soon, so that's the problem.
Maybe we can...
Yeah, that's perfect.
Let me know if you need me to read anything out during the process.
Okay.
Do we need to go over it, like reading it?
No,
Do we need Iris to?
I think we're all set.
We're good?
I think
Okay.
we're all set.
You could move here if it's better for you.
It may be worse, because I usually
okay.
eyeglasses for distance, but I didn't realize this was getting so tiny. But anyway, I think we can start.
Okay. All right, so let's take a look at the first one, Door of Hope. I think for fiscal year 13-14, our current funding is $20,676. and what they're requesting this year is $88,639. I just need to get a feel of, during the interviews, it was mentioned that we obviously will not be able to meet the funding requested, and we'll try our best to come up with a number.
So if I could make some broader comments
Sure.
before diving into each one, is that just to give an additional context to what you outlined in terms of funds available, even if we were to give the exact same amount that past grantees received, we would still have a shortfall of a certain amount. So that just kind of gives some context as to
Right.
we're going to have to make two types of choices here today. One is a choice of a funding level, perhaps, which would be most likely lower than what they've each proposed, because there's a pretty large gap in most of them between what they're proposing and what they got and what's available. And then the second approach, of course, is making a decision of whether or not to fund certain organizations at all in order to allow enough room to provide meaningful funding for others that would remain in the pool. Because if you try and divide the pie up in too many ways and make the amounts too small, then the burden alone of just the reporting and the kind of the administrative part of this starts to diminish the returns of receiving the funding to begin with. So I think, clearly the amounts that people propose, organizations propose, is on a level that would allow them some meaningful return to make an impact in their particular areas. So I guess as we start to go through each of them to give a qualitative assessment, I think we're going to have to also start from the perspective of, are they in the pool or are they not in the pool?
Well, why don't we do that first? And why don't we just try and determine if there's any programs that are going to be eliminated, and then we'll just eliminate those programs and then work
our way
towards exactly work towards funding current programs. Any suggestions from anyone with respect to
and
any programs?
that's what's difficult. I just feel like a lot of these programs add so much value, and they all meet the requirements of CDBG. But
There's
Go
also
ahead.
the issue of categories of areas
I
where
agree.
people work, organizations work. So, by my count, we have more proposals dealing with the homeless issue versus other categories. So that also might be a place to start to say, okay, how many of the homeless, how many of the programs that address the homelessness issue can
and
we
if they're
can we
duplicated
fund?
programs
Right.
that we can eliminate.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's go back to homeless programs. I think Pat Venture was one, Essentia and Dora Popes, right?
And Catholic Charities, I guess, is part.
Well,
as
it's
a type
a prevention.
Of
It was a prevention.
Dora Hopes is mostly towards domestic violence
And children
victims
and
children
women.
as opposed to homeless. But I do agree that Pat Ventures deals exclusively with homelessness and Essentia, obviously, and to a certain extent Catholic Charities.
Turn on your mic,
Fish and loaves, yeah.
Right. But in general, I think it would have to be Path Ventures and Essentia, and if there's any duplicative services that provided, then we should probably think about Path Ventures, since Essentia has been around for a long time, and we've never, I don't believe, funded Path Ventures.
And I also believe with PATH, Commissioner Ramirez expressed some concern regarding the organizational structure. I do share her concerns in that regard, which is it's a mix of both for-profit and nonprofit. I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, but that the other ones are more purely in the nonprofit sector. So for me, if we had to kind of narrow it a little bit within that category, I would probably be predisposed to those with whom we have clear experience and track record.
Sure.
I agree. So do we want to maybe highlight or just, for now, put 0 next to, what number is number 6? Yeah. Do we want to do that for now, just to?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
we're
that
obviously,
will come back
we'll address
and-
this later. These are not final determinations, I assume.
Okay, so that's one category. How about children's category? Anything that,
Is that number
Youth and-
4
mean
path
youth?
ventures, or is that number
Youth?
6?
Path Ventures is number, on the spreadsheet there, it's showing as number 6.
yeah.
I can't see that. It's number 4 on the interview. Okay.
Yep.
That
All
one
right.
Okay. So we have Glendale Healthy Kids, Salvation Army, which are different. I think there are 2 tutoring programs.
They're very different.
They're very different. The Salvation and Home Enement, I think they're after-school tutorings.
They're basically duplicating, but in different parts of the city. But they're also duplicating with the school district. And the schools in that area are providing that very same service.
Yeah, but the need is so great when it comes to the number of people, that...
But we're talking in terms of the program
Right.
that we're funding, which is the ESL, and that school, the program that is
The police department, part of their program is tutoring as well, right?
Yeah, tutoring
Not
is one thing, but,
entirely.
exactly, I'm talking about the funding that is provided at the schools for the same program, and supplemental funding, federal funding, actually.
But I'm
at
not
this
sure how their qualification is. I mean, for school, who qualifies? Is it a completely free program that they offer at schools? Is that what it is, like after school? Because I don't think that a lot of people are, eligible to receive that kind of.
I think with the Salvation Army, they don't turn anyone away. But I'm just, in terms of what they provide with the money that we're giving them, that maybe just channel into their regular program rather than to education.
Where are we now? Are we talking about...
Priorities, you said?
Right, well, priorities
After school.
But are we talking about thinking about eliminating a program or funding a program, and how much are we funding the program?
We were still in eliminating, right?
Eliminating.
Okay. I'm really reluctant to eliminate any of those programs completely. I wouldn't want to do that. We're talking about Salvation Army. Who are the others?
Home Element,
Home
the
Element.
after school.
Okay. And
Glendale
there's-
Police.
They've been in existence for such a long time, and I don't want to make that call.
Okay. Now, do we want to? I agree. I feel the same. I think all 3 programs. I like to continue some kind of funding.
I like all the programs, of course. They're all really great programs. And it seems like we don't have enough after-school programs funded and provided at the schools where the facilities are, they're there, the kids don't have to leave. So it's very good that we have these groups that fund them. But I'm just going back to the programs that we're asked to fund. And in terms of Minutemen doing the ESL,
I don't think it's
kind of,
I thought it was
it's
just
only
tutoring.
$11,000 that they're asking for. It seems to me they could easily give up that $11,000 to one of the other programs,
Why do you say easily?
because they have a vast resource in the community, great support.
The Salvation Army doesn't.
And the Salvation Army does too.
Yeah.
You could eliminate that one too.
Yeah, and I mean, the way I kind of judge it is, also kind of what are they bringing to the table on top of what they may be asking for. And that's why I was asking the line of questioning I was with, for example, Home Minutemen, which is, they are bringing other resources to the table to actually make the program work. So to me, it's kind of reasonable to look at that number that they're asking for. They've asked for more, obviously, but, they've been able to manage the program with less by bringing more of their own resources to the table.
Well, and to me, the $11,000 doesn't hurt them. I mean, it's just a program that they provide that they probably could provide anyway,
Well, it's 11,000 plus a lot of volunteer work, so if you
Of
add up,
course.
they're providing probably close to 30,000.
But
they're
that's
only
true of-
asking. So what I'm saying is, if you're funding them at a minimum level, they're willing to add more
That's
to
my
make
point.
that program happen. Versus some other programs will just go away with 11,000, but this is going to survive. And
It's going to survive whether they get it or not.
Yeah, I
I'm
guess
not sure about
I
whether they
disagree
get it
with
or
that.
not, but.
I think I would disagree with that.
Well,
But that's just one of them.
Is your opinion that you want to completely eliminate one of these programs?
I would eliminate Home Minutemen.
And
And also the 11,000 for the Salvation Army, because I think those are duplicated programs.
In what sense? Because the schools offer them?
Because the school that is
Well,
required
I'm not sure
to
about
offer.
that. I just
I am sure
don't-
about that. There's Title I in every single one of those southern Glendale schools. And all the high schools, and I think 3 of the junior high schools. But anyway, that's my opinion, and you guys are 3 of you, so. And then finally.
As it's into CUP programs, that's just, after school tutoring.
They're good programs in terms of after school, but we're asking to fund an education program that I think duplicates what we have in place. Now, they want to do
I'm not sure
chess
about
or
that. That's
whatever.
why I can't comment. I'm not sure if the school really provides that number of hours of ESL, support program. So
As Vice Chair, Mark and members of the Commission, there are a number of elementary schools that do have after-school programs, including tutoring. I would have to venture to guess, though, the number of slots that they have available, at least for a free or state-funded programs, is probably relatively small in comparison to the school population. For example, if the school population is 800, there might be 50 or 100 enrolled in those programs, leaving a great number of children that would have to rely on other organizations for after-school programming. So it's not always a matter of whether like programs are duplicating each other. It's also a matter of if the need and the demand is there in the community, then it might warrant funding a couple of programs, especially programs that are proven programs. There are advantages for being enrolled in the Home Minutemen after-school program, for example, because you have exposure and other opportunities that you could tag on to that you wouldn't have at the schools. And with the Salvation Army, same thing. They have social services that, as a participant in the after-school program, the families could also take advantage of by virtue of being enrolled in those programs, which would make them different than the school programs, for example. So in many cases, you do have to look at the totality of the program and the totality of the community to make judgments.
And my concern is that it's geared toward education, which duplicates what the school districts are doing. And this is not after school. These are actual programs in the classroom with teachers and aides and administration. That's all funded by federal funds. And so it's not after school. And the programs that Home Minutemen provides, and Salvation Army provides, and STAR provides, and anybody else provides after school are critical programs. So in terms of the programming, it's necessary. But I'm just, where they want to use the funds is in education, and I think they could be better used somewhere else where they can be measured, because in fact you can't measure that 50% of our kids will be reading at grade level by such and such, because they're going to be there because those are the same goals that the school district has to meet. So, and that's I'm not looking at them as after-school programs, but as education programs.
Yeah, but there are children who are actually lacking and not receiving the grades that they should be receiving. And
That's what
they're failing.
Title I's supposed to do.
Right, so obviously there is a need that these children are ending up at these 2 locations versus school, so maybe the school is over. I mean, these are things that, we're not completely clear, but the way they indicated, clearly there is a need, and they have, the need for the funding to continue the programs.
If we're going to use the guidelines that you talked about, Jess, there's a need, there's a demand, these are proven programs, they have good track records, there's advantage to be enrolled in Home Minutemen and in Salvation Army. I'm very, very, very reluctant to eliminate those programs whatsoever.
But I think let's take a vote, maybe.
Well,
I have a problem with reducing. If we're going to spend this much on homelessness, reducing youth programs, because I think, youth programs are preventative in nature.
I agree.
Whereas the homeless programs are meant to treat a symptom and an issue that we have. So I kind of feel like it would be, both are important, but I feel like it would create an imbalance if we were to take away from the youth programs. Number one. Number two, while what Commissioner Ramirez says is, ideally you would have the schools taking care of these programs. I don't think these programs would exist if the need were being met completely by the schools. And different organizations have different strength in addressing different constituencies that are part of the overall picture. So I think in that sense, each one brings a different strength. What Mr. Duran was saying about the entry point to potential other services that these organizations provide, I think is an important factor, because it starts to address it creates fringe benefits to the participation in that initial program that we might be funding. The other issue is, they're proposing certain amounts of funding. We don't have to try and fund at those levels. Even if you were to go back to current year funding levels, which in each of these cases is almost half of what they've requested, at least you're giving them something to work with, and they are adding to it from other sources, because clearly they're already doing that in the fact that the programs continue to survive.
Well, I would prefer that they take that money and put it into basketball or music or some other program that the schools are deficient in providing for our kids. And in terms of language, where the kids learn the most is where they interact with each other, usually on the playgrounds or on teams or, working projects together. And so my concern is just that we're duplicating services that are required to be provided by the schools, and the schools are required to measure these accomplishments, or they don't get the funding next year. And so then if we duplicate the programs in an after-school program, of course they're going to be measured as exceeding all expectations, but you don't know if it's on the basis of what they're providing or if the school district is doing their work. Another thing that I just wish that maybe they would be working together, and they're not. And then you could be, sharing tests and testing information, and how do you evaluate using the same criteria. And I think it could, definitely anytime you're doing it's essentially a tutoring, that will work. But so does so many other programs that both programs provide that could be away from education, more homework, and more sitting time when they really want to play after school. And anyway, that's the way I would like to see it, and of course, that's just one opinion.
I mean, that's great feedbacks.
We want to maybe, since we seem to have some discussion on this one, kind of if we could find where the places where we all agree, that might help in the process of elimination, or did you want to actually?
I think we should just, because I don't want to come back because we're going to have the same discussions probably.
Yeah, because there seems to be a difference between after-school program, which is it's not my concern that it's an after-school program per se, but that it's an education program that's already being funded and has to be measured.
So do we feel like, I feel like we still need to allocate some funding, but I'm just going to see how you feel. And
Yeah, I believe we should have some level of funding. I don't think we can on the level that it's being requested. So then I think
Would it be fair to use last year's number for now?
that's a starting point.
Would you feel?
Well, I already made my opinion clear on that, and your question was, do you want to use last year's current funding level?
Just to put that as a placeholder.
That's fine with me.
For both of those agencies?
Is that okay? I know that you have a different opinion, but just for now, let's put the number, since we all feel.
What number are you putting up?
What was funded
Previous
last
year.
year,
Previous
previous year's funding.
For both Minutemen and
Yes, which is less than half of what they're asking for.
Salvation Army, which is the same amount, actually.
No, less than, yeah,
But it's less than half of what they're asking for. Yeah.
this year.
7,678.
Yeah.
Okay, so we eliminated one, we put two placeholders. Then moving along.
Maybe there's one we could clarify. So fair housing, that's one that we have to provide some level for HUD
Has to be funded.
I
credibility.
think the minimum was 9.
That's the HUD required program. The only required program we have.
And refresh my memory, where does the 9 amount come
It's
from?
the minimum.
That's the minimum? HUD-defined minimum?
Percentage, probably.
No, necessarily. Again, their request was, in the past, they've had $15,000, and because of the current cuts, we've had to reduce it to $9,000.
So there's no predetermined definition of how much, just some.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
But I think you had mentioned that the minimum that they would need is 9, and perhaps even 10.
10, right.
Based
Again, the
on-
thresholds are, and I'm sure you're talking about the thresholds as far as each agency to really have that fine line where they really will not be functional if they're getting less than 10,000. That's kind of the line, there's about 10,000.
What I wanted to clarify is there's no HUD-defined minimum. It's just that they must be funded on some level, whatever that amount.
And effective.
Yes, there's no
They need
HUD
to be
minimum
effective.
level. It's, again, they get $1,000, that means we're funding, but then they're going to say, I can't run that program. So it's a local choice here when we're looking at what is the amount that they could operate the program with.
So I'm basically deferring to you on this, in that, you have the experience with the fair housing program, and I believe last year we funded 9, and I believe last year you had said that would be the minimum at that time, and I think you're recommending 10, and I think we should either fund 9,000 or 10,000.
I would recommend, since we did this with the others, let's start with 9.
9, yeah.
And see where we get
Okay.
I
there.
think so.
Okay, that's fine.
Any other program that we want to start with, or? Let me talk about CASPs, since this is
Okay.
another after school, well, not after school, but it's another.
That's an integrated program. It's an excellent.
Right.
That's one of my favorite programs. I would take Minutemen's money and put it in that one.
I agree. I think it's an excellent program, and I think it needs funding, and I think it needs funding more than what we funded last year.
I agree.
Is that what you're thinking?
I
also?
agree with you.
And I think what they mentioned to start another program, the minimum bare bottom that they need is 15. So just to go to another school, and that's been their mission, to really go to a new school.
Because we
and
took it away from them.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I think 15,000 is what they indicated would be the minimum for one school, and I would recommend the 15,000 for CAST, and I hope my colleagues
I agree.
likewise.
I agree.
I think it's a good starting point.
I
We're gonna
agree.
have to squeeze this thing at the very end to make the number balance sheet work out, but let's see where.
Iris,
where
can we
we
put
land.
15?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. All right. All right, then let's start from the top. Can we go back, or do you have any other?
Well, I was going to suggest,
What did we
a
eliminate?
big fish here is the Glendale Youth Alliance, because they're asking for 86,000. They were funded at almost 53 last year. Maybe that's somewhere where we can Might be worth starting at the larger amounts.
Okay, so I don't remember what the requested number was, what they requested last year, and we gave, I think they requested 100 something, if I'm not mistaken.
You mean for the current year?
No, the fiscal year 13-14.
Yeah.
They requested 100 plus, and we gave them 52.
They requested 85,000
Last year too?
Yeah,
Okay.
and they received
And they're
80.
requesting 86 this year.
About the same.
And last year, how much was funded? The 52,678? Was there any additional funding added to their allocation?
No, it was the,
Well,
no.
well, you're correct, actually. It was a 48,678, and again, I should make a just a remark on this. This includes the $5,000 that was reallocated, remember, from Camp Rosie and GAR.
So it was
this does include-
48,000.
It's 48,000 plus 5,000 from the reallocation.
All right, so, I mean, that's a starting point right there. 48,678 was funded
For last year.
for last year. So what are your thoughts?
I would at minimum start there, if not a little bit less, but maybe, like I said, we can kind of massage the numbers, get closer, maybe start with last year's level.
The 48,000? Okay.
Is that what's up there? I can't see it.
Sorry.
Is that what's up there?
But aren't they really getting more clients?
Yeah, as we're getting
They're-
less
they're-
funding, they're getting more clients, but
I think that's a predicament of all of them, really.
But that's why, should eliminate some so that we can keep the effective ones in place.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Commissioner Ramirez. I think we're trying to get to a starting point, really, because when we fill this out, we're still going to be way off available funds. But at least
That's why I wanted to eliminate.
I know. We may still have to come back to that. I mean, that may be one of the options
that
we
could be
pursue
one of
and
the
say,
options, yeah.
in order to balance, we're going
You're
to
gonna really
eliminate
come
one
back
out
to
of the, 14 or 50, whatever, how many left.
To cut the effective funding is,
I get what you're saying.
all right, so another large request, large number was the Armenian Relief Society. I think,
Next biggest one is Door of Hope,
let's see.
which is 88.
Oh, the request, you mean?
The request
Okay,
is
yeah,
22.
Door of Hope.
Well, they're requesting 88. Their current year funding is 21.
and we already gave them, we kind of are committed to them, don't you think?
Was this another 5,000 added? So we originally gave them 17 something?
Yeah, 15,606. Yeah.
And this was the other 5,000. Well, I went to Door Hope, and my humble opinion, it's an excellent program.
Yeah.
But
But, we don't have room to do 88,000.
we don't have
know
anywhere
that.
close to that.
Right. So I'm wondering whether, again, if we agree with the program and, in principle, if we just for the sake of, for the time being, putting in a number, we put in last year's number, and then we see where we can play with. Because we may still come back to what Commissioner Ramirez is saying, and saying, let's eliminate one to beef up others, type of thing. That may be a choice we don't know.
Okay. So not the 20, but go back to the 15?
15,676.
Yeah, but I'd like to see a little more there.
I would like to see more.
So let's put a note on that, and we'll come back to
Please.
that.
Or do you want to
Oh,
make
we-
the recommendation now, or?
I don't mind making a recommendation. I like to see them closer to what they got after the 5,000,
20.
which is 20.
I agree.
All right, so let's put 2676 for now. How far off we're going to be?
Okay. All right, the next large number I see is
ARS.
ARS.
And this is another one where 5,000 was added.
So the 53 includes the 5 extra?
Yes, it's
Yes.
48,678.
So they're requesting 66. How much did they request last year when we funded them 53? I just have a feeling it was more.
Requested 68,546.
Same. Do we want to place a 50,000 hold for now, or? Or what was it, 48,000 that was funded before the
Initially,
5?
It was 48,678.
I would hold them at the same.
I was going to suggest
48?
50.
50.
Is what I
50.
wrote down. 50.
Yeah, that's what I did.
I think 50 is
I
a
mean,
nice round
it's a
number.
tremendous population and a need that they serve, and a lot of it is volunteer effort.
I was going to say
also.
come back later, but now let's put 50, and then if we come back later, we'll just give more.
Okay, I put 50 in.
What are we now, at 166?
Could
We
we
have about
round
100
off
to work.
some of the numbers up there? I mean, unfortunately, I can't see it here, but is there any way, the door hope is at 20,676. Could we round it off to 21? Is that
If
okay?
anything, I would round down because that's
Yeah.
very-
Okay,
20.
or round off anywhere. It could be, 20 is fine too. I mean, it's just easier.
Yeah, I agree.
2,600.
So an even 20,000?
20, yeah.
Yes, please.
And I'll just give you a point of reference why those numbers are off, because of our cut last year. We reduced, I believe it was 5%.
Percentage.
So it was a round figure of 12,000 or 15,000.
Okay.
If we just had to make, the committee decided to make cuts just across the board.
So do you want to do the same for the others, Commissioner Tushin?
I would like to.
So I
just-
would suggest...
I can see them.
The next one I have up there
I would
is
suggest you round
Yeah.
down because we're going to be off.
Oh,
anyway.
which ones are the others?
The next one is Salvation Army. I have 11,678.
Okay.
Just do 11,
11.
and then the other one, the same.
Okay. 11,000 for Hominid Men.
And Essentia down to 48.
Which one?
Essentia.
We haven't
So
done
now
a
they're
This is
all-
48,760
we haven't done a
something.
Cincinnati, right?
Oh, that was, I'm sorry.
So if we're going to round all of them
Glendale
down.
Youth Alliance is who it was, I'm sorry.
Glendale
We don't
Youth?
have any funding
Oh,
there.
No, it's Glendale
oh,
Youth.
sorry.
So Glendale Youth is at 48.
48.
Got it.
Okay. Next, we can go to
Like Essentia? Or,
the 30, the second, access to healthcare and health education, Glendale Healthy Kids. So they're asking for 30,000.
so I was going to recommend that since they did not receive anything last year, that we kind of hold them. Let's see, out of the ones we have track record on, then we can kind of come back to them. That was be my suggestion.
I don't think we should be
That's not to
looking
make-
at punishing them for not
No, no, no.
applying.
That's not the way I'm looking at it. I'm just trying to look at it from a process of, unless we're going to sit here and eliminate one or two of them,
Yeah.
even existing programs, to give us the room. Because like I said in the outset, even if you allocate the same amounts as last year to all the current recipients, you're still off. So
Exactly, yeah. That's why you can't do it.
Okay.
That's
well,
not to say
let's-
that's not to say that the current recipients I mean, we want a fair.
They're just saying, let's put 0 and then come back if, let's do that and then we'll come back. I really hope that we can come back and fund them something.
Yeah, because they're the only service that they provide,
Right.
and it's professional services, which are volunteer services, and surely we should be able to kick in some. The school district is providing
Something
their
we should
places,
encourage.
yeah.
Okay. All right, so loaves and fishes. Number 10, homeless prevention. So they're asking for 57,
They're asking for 30, 36.
and we have funded them 36 last year. I mean, just because we have less than last year, I'll say maybe put a placeholder of 30 for now. That's something we want to be.
I would agree with that. We're gonna have
I
to.
mean, they serve Glendale, but they also serve others, so maybe
They serve others out of Glendale? Is that what the
very
situation is?
minimum number of Burbank they said they also serve.
Their grant is specifically for Glendale only.
And they track that against
Yes,
Glendale?
they're required now under our guidelines to service Glendale
Okay.
only. So it's 100%.
100%?
So I would agree with 30 just for a starting point. I don't know how others feel.
I would say 35.
We're at 194 and we still have 3 to go.
I think it should be in the ballpark between 30 and 35. I think maybe 30,000 is a little bit too extreme of a reduction, going down to 6,000, 678, 35. Perhaps we could agree on a number that's somewhere in between 30 and 35.
It would be 33.
Well, then let's do it.
I'm fine with that.
That's fine.
We're going to have to come back to all
We'll
this
come
anyway.
back. Well, I have no problem
Yeah,
coming
we're going to
back.
have to. I mean, we'll have to.
I mean, we'll figure out how much it is.
Okay.
What's left?
Senior Services Program, Glendale Community Services and Parks.
Well, I know this is a city program, I mean, obviously, but I do have a special place in my heart for senior services program, and I took my dad there, and I think it's really a great program, and Maggie indicated that I know they asked for 20, they received 16,678. I think we should be somewhere between the $18,000 and $20,000 range. What are your thoughts?
I say 15 because we just don't have the number. I mean, I just don't see. We were like 20,000 less than last year, or is it
9,000?
9,000 less than last year.
Yeah, I would agree.
I'll
with
go
that.
15.
I mean,
We'll come back.
I don't
Commissioner
disagree
Tashian
with
will-
Commissioner Tashian's sentiments about the importance of the programs. I guess on both the programs run by the city, I have a little bit of a feeling that, you know, those are the sorts of programs I'd like to see worked into the overall city budget, and I kind of view the CDBG funds as being directed at nonprofits, trying to augment what the city does. That's just the general kind of approach I have. I'm not against the actual services, obviously, and the importance of those services, and we all have choices to make. I recognize that. But I guess for now, maybe let's put 15 down.
That's fine.
We have to consider that the city's using their building. I mean, where can you feed that many people every day except in
I get that, but
city
you know,
building?
every week, you know, money goes out the door on things that are less important than these two programs. So if it were me sitting up
Well,
here
since-
in a different
yeah.
position, I would be making different choices about, you know, how I spend those other monies so that I could make sure the city budget allowed for these sorts of things. But I guess, like I said,
But that's why they give us the
I'm not an
federal
elected
funds.
leader, so those aren't the choices I have to make. But I think let's start with 15.
Well, I understand your position that it's a city-provided service, and however, you know, Glendale's community is aging, and we're up to 40,000 senior citizens, and it's going to get more, and these individuals, they're going to need assistance, and that's what senior services provides.
And that's their tax dollars too. You know, it's not like they don't pay taxes.
No, again, I'm not arguing with the programs and the necessity to fund them. I'm fully supportive of that. It's kind of how you fund them. That's the only issue I'm commenting on, but not to the point of let's not fund them. I think let's put something down. Just wanted to make a general comment.
But that's fine if you want to insert 15, but I would request to revisit that number.
Sure, absolutely.
It's not going to change.
Well,
Well, we'll see. I think we have some.
why do you say that for?
There's no money.
We could cut from a few others if you think that necessary.
So then, Essentia?
They're asking for 30. Last year we funded them 26, and this is another homeless program actually that connects the individuals to other programs in the community.
I don't, you know, I'm sure it's an important program. I'm sure it's somewhat effective. I still see a lot of homeless people in Glendale. I see them every day. I see them in courts. And I think they need to be funded. I certainly wouldn't fund them the amount that they're requesting. I would recommend perhaps 25,000 in that ballpark, and ask your opinions.
I would agree with that.
I'll go with 25.
I'm going to go 22, but
Yeah, I mean, I could go lower, but if we want to put a number in.
You want to put 22?
Just because we really don't have the
You already
funding,
said
we're almost-
25.
We're going to have to come back and...
Well, no, I mean, I'm one person.
Here I'm agreeing with you, the two persons.
All right. So, let's
We'll
just
come back
let's
to
just
it.
put
I mean, just the
22
ratio,
in there.
looking at someone asking 30, you're giving 22 versus they're asking, 80 and we're giving 20. So we need to be,
All right, so let's.
and they're both homeless, homeless.
Let's
so-
give them 22?
Yeah.
And then we'll come back if necessary. Because where are we now?
We're at 234, so we're okay.
We have $29,000 available.
And what's left?
29,000 available.
So,
And what's left?
Youth and Family Services, next.
And then there's STARS, right?
Yep.
So Youth and Family is another City of Glendale programs, one of the last presentations.
Right, and we funded them 10,000, they're requesting 25.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to fund it, it has to be within 10 or,
Or it's
that
not worth their
ballpark,
time.
or it's
We're not going to get,
yeah.
or we're not going to get it.
So I would recommend we put them in at their
10?
current level, yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. And then we're STAR.
Yeah. The last one, students training as role models, Glendale Police Department.
Which I like.
We all like. So they're asking for 22, and we funded them 12 last year.
Do you have 12
So how
left?
much do we have left?
We have 19 left.
So if we
Oh,
do,
we have 12.
so let's put 12 there, because again, you don't want to go lower than 10.
Okay, so if we...
14.
If we give them 12,
It leaves us
that
$7,000.
leaves us $7,000 to play with, add and modify, manipulate, whatever you want to use.
Assuming, so there's two things outstanding, though. There's the Glendale Healthy Kids issue, right? It sounded to me like we were there was pretty much consensus around the zero on path.
No, I wanted to give them some, but 10,000 doesn't work, really.
I wanted to fund them at least 10.
Path? Or
No,
Glendale?
Glendale Healthy
Yeah, that's what I'm
Kids.
saying. So I think there was consensus around path at zero, but there was also consensus at giving Glendale Healthy Kids something.
Yeah.
Was there?
Now, is this part of the contingency
No.
monies that we could set
No.
aside? Is that something we're going to consider for...
I think
Oh,
You can add
we
to
can talk
it.
about that.
You can add to it.
Healthy kids?
Yes. Recommending funding for the Glendale Healthy Kids program could be a contingency recommendation. So you can recommend, should the sequestration cuts be less than what we've accounted for in our current proposed funding allocation plan, to the tune of whatever 10,000 or 10 to 15,000, that your recommendation is that funding go towards the Glendale Healthy Kids program or whatever split.
That's something,
I think Mr. Correa has a comment to make.
I'm sorry, Vice.
Vice Chairman Kerry and members of the committee, I just wanted to point out, now that I see the recommendations, every year of course, we go through the process, and one thing I probably failed to point out is that some of these projects, some of the bigger grants, look like it's a lot of money, but it's actually to pay for a full staff person that's a permanent person there, and sometimes what has happened is that if there's cuts, that kind of eliminates that position. So even a cut like on some of these would eliminate that position. And in the case of last year, the agency did come to council and request that the funds get put back, and the council followed through with that. And it's the bigger ones, and I'll point them out that have, I'm just pointing these out, that these are the ones that have permanent positions that are pretty much funded by this CDBG program, not hourly staff or not people who are doing this as a percentage of their salary. Those would be the Loaves and Fishes program for the case manager, which we saw today, the ARS program for the, again, case manager we saw today, the youth employment program for the case manager, but who's not present here today, the homeless case management for Essentia that was here today, And STAR is an hourly employee. Again, those are kind of like, those are adjustable. But in the past, we've had concerns from the agencies that with all the funding cuts, sometimes even cutting from current cuts into that permanent employee's salary, and agencies aren't able to pick them up. Whether or not that's would happen or not, we haven't had that faced because for some whatever reason the council has reprogrammed some funds, or the committee had some extra funds. But just as you look at any available funds or adding any new projects, it's important that we sustain some of those programs that operate with a more of a permanent full-time position, and these are all counselors, case managers, not necessarily a part-time tutor or part-time employee. And again, that's just for your information from what we've had in the past.
All right, that's great. So I hear that 3 agencies, ARS, Loaves and Fishes, and youth employment, those are the 3 with full-time.
In a sense, yeah.
In a sense, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I don't see a great cut, though, but you think that 1,000 or 2,000 will have that kind of an impact? Yes?
Yeah.
So we have 7,000 left. If we were to divide that up between those 4 that you just mentioned and wait for a contingency, make that a contingency upon receiving additional funding for Glendale Healthy Kids, would that be maybe a recommendation?
That's better, yeah. I mean, it helps fill their gaps. I mean, I just only speak from experience when they've come back and again say it's not feasible. I know that's a large amount that they're looking at, it's $50,000, but that's mainly to support a case manager for a lot of these positions that are upfront community services. And again, I'm only referring to those that are more the permanent positions versus hourly's work. Funds could be adjusted.
So in addition to those comments, I think Commissioner Tashjian, I know there was a couple of these programs where we said we'd come back and, because of your desire to fund in a little bit better way, right?
The only one that I had thoughts on was the senior services program. I'm all set with the others. I have no problems. I agree with the consensus here with respect to funding those other programs. I was thinking of perhaps adding another 1,000 or so to senior services and getting up to close to what they were funded last year, which was 16. If we do that, then we'll have 6,000 remaining. And if we divide that by 4,
my gosh.
Divided by 4, we'll have about 1,500 that we could add to those 4 programs. Catholic Charities, ARS, GYA, and Essentia. But again, that's, this is being...
I like that.
I mean, the other approach here, if we wanted to kind of test to see what our tolerance levels are, is to give yourself more cushion to go in that direction. You could look at eliminating one program that would give you a little more. Like I said, it's a test of whether or not you're kind of tolerate the hit with any single program.
What would be your recommendation?
I don't know. That's why I'm testing myself.
I think Minutemen could do without 11,000 and switch it over to any one of them.
Yeah, I don't feel right about that. I think they're serving so many, especially that they're adding so much volunteer time. The value is not 11. I look at the value as 30, 40,000.
I also see, in their case, they have a huge intake valve with all the other programs, youth programs that they run, that this is a great complement to kind of creating that kind of overall safety net, because I think their strength is obviously in the scouting and the sport programs, but there's always going to be a percentage of those youth who could use the push on the academic side, and I think this is a great way to kind of bring them in through sports, but support them through academics. I'd hate to eliminate something that seems to be working for them, which is giving that support, because it might only just encourage you know, just the sports, and we want both to go hand in hand. That's just my personal opinion.
So if we were not to eliminate anything, we would have 7,000 to work with, and if we add 1,000, can we add 1,000 to senior services program just to try it? Make that 16.
You can add it, but I want to get back to something that,
Okay.
Now we have, Iris, we have 6,000.
You have $6,000 available for allocating.
So if we add 1,500 to
Those
the
four.
four Catholic charities.
So ARS, Catholic, Glendale Youth,
And Essentia. Can you do that, 1,500?
Sure.
That takes
And
care of it.
let's see, so you said ARS is one of them?
ARS,
ARS 15,
So that's 5150,
Catholic charities,
500, I mean. Catholic charities go to 34,500.
correct. GYA,
UYA would go to 53. No, I'm sorry, 48.
49,
Sorry, 49,500.
and Essentia.
And Essentia to 23,500.
Yeah.
There you go. And you're now balanced.
Okay, so we eliminated one, and we have one on hold. Yes, Mr. Correa.
Just a point of reference, I just noticed you did allocate the Dora Hope to 20,000, and last year's it was 15,678. So that's one, again, that you adjusted higher than...
That we did higher.
Yeah.
So you said if we receive the additional funding, it would be around 9,000. So, and 9,000 allocating to, let's say, if we were to come back and allocate that to Glendale Healthy Kids, it's not enough even to, right? I mean, it's very minimal. They may not even
want it.
I mean,
You have to ask them, we have to wait and see what they would release. And we've never tried that before with them. We haven't had that direct payment for them, so it's a option we can explore.
so can we recommend if we receive that funding, we will take 1,000 from the Door of Hope and add it to the Glendale Healthy Kids and make it an even 10, so they can at least have something to work with?
Well, we should make that change now to the Door of
Can't
Hope.
keep it $1,000 credit, can we? I mean, no, you have to completely allocate, and then if, yeah.
Can you...
Vice Chair Markarian, members of the committee, it may be 9,000, maybe 10,000, maybe 11,000, maybe 8,000.
So we're not exactly...
Yeah, so I probably wouldn't tinker with the making conditions on any of your funding recommendations. I would suggest that whatever the additional funding is that we allocate it to.
Okay.
The recommendation is to allocate it to the Glendale Healthy Kids. And if the Glendale Healthy Kids program cannot work with that amount, then maybe the next contingency recommendation could be that whatever the additional amount of funds is, that we can divide that evenly between your top four priorities, which were ARS and
Loaves and Fishes.
Yeah, loaves and fishes, et cetera.
Those four.
And that would provide them with an additional $2,000 or $3,000 each, which almost makes them whole to where you started off from anyway.
Do we want to make that as a motion?
Good idea.
Glendale Healthy
Would you like me
Kids.
to read the
Yes, please.
recommendations?
I'm sorry.
I mean, I just want to clear everything.
Just to be clear, the four priorities are the ARS Community Services Project, the Loaves and Fishes Homeless Prevention, Essentia Community Homeless Outreach, and the Youth Employment by GYA.
Yeah.
Those were the four where you added additional
If we
funds.
added $1,500,
Because I'm not including senior services, which was maybe just a little bit of...
which is at 16.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Well, I'm pretty confident that if there's a contingency fund or contingency plan with extra allocated funds to Glendale Healthy Kids, I'm pretty confident that they'll accept it if it's 9,000 or 10,000, because if you look at what they're requesting right now, 8,000 is requested to pay for program supplies, and 1,000 is requested to pay for insurance, among some of the other things that they want. So I think that...
Yeah, they're funding the program in
Yeah.
other ways, so this would kind of
Complement
augment
what-
it.
So I think that we should do that, is give them that allocated extra funds.
Does this look good to you? Is everyone comfortable with the numbers?
Would you like me to read them
Yes,
out?
please.
A transitional housing program for homeless women and children, Door of Hope, 20,000. Access to health care and health education, Glendale Healthy Kids, 0. The Zone After School Program, the Salvation Army, 11,000. Glendale Housing Now, Path Ventures, 0. After School Tutoring, Home and at Men, Glendale Ararat Chapter, 11,000. Fair Housing Program, Housing Rights Center, 9,000. Intervention Prevention Clinical Group Counseling, CASPS, 15,000. Loaves and Fishes Homeless Prevention, Catholic Charities of Los Angeles, Inc., 34,500. Community Outreach Project, Armenian Relief Society of Western USA, Inc., 51,500. Senior Services Program, Glendale Community Services and Parks Department, 16,000. Youth Employment Program, Glendale Youth Alliance, 49,500. Homeless Outreach Case Management, Essentia, 23,500. Youth and Family Services Program, Glendale Community Services and Parks Department, 10,000. Students Training as Role Models, STAR, Glendale Police Department, 12,000.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along.
And then just to be clear, so any contingency based on final HUD funds would be allocated to Glendale Healthy Kids. Should they, by the off chance, decline those amounts, it would then be reallocated to the 4 priority organizations in equal amounts.
Agreed, that's fine.
Do we need to make a recommendation or a motion or any?
I do need a motion and a second.
If that's your motion and you get a second, then you can vote on it.
And
Would you like-
I'll second it.
That's my motion, and you seconded it.
Who made the motion finally?
Roll call, please.
Committee members Armenian,
Yes.
Markarian,
Yes.
Olivares is absent, Ramirez,
Yes.
Bastian.
Yes.
All right, next item.
The next item is item 5, committee staff comments.
Can I just make a comment on, and kind of back to that, to our deliberations here? I would like you to get a clarification for me on the programming for Minutemen, on the scouting, and does that meet our criteria?
But the scouting is not part of the proposal.
I'm not talking about the proposal.
Yeah, in what sense, Committeemember Ramirez?
In that the Boy Scouts of America did not meet the criteria for to receive federal funding, and so
But
you've evidently assured them that they're okay, and that's my understanding too. But however, this has come up, and they do use the scouting logo, and the Boy Scouts do discriminate, and they have no problem telling us that. So, you get a ruling for me on that?
Committee Ramirez, what I can tell you is in the subrecipient agreement, which is the funding agreement that's executed between all of the organizations and the city, where we lay out all of the terms and conditions, including all of the federal requirements, and the federal requirements do not allow for discrimination in any form or fashion. And each organization agrees that their programs and services will be open to any and all members of the community, and they execute that agreement. They are eligible to receive federal funds, and they do. They agree that this organization will not discriminate in the use of the federal funds they receive from the city.
But if the Boy Scouts of America, in fact, does discriminate,
well, we are holding the Glendale chapter accountable for the use of Glendale's federal funds. So we don't need a ruling from the national chapter of the Boy Scouts. Our agreement is with the Glendale local chapter of Home and Edmond Boy Scouts.
But if they have an agreement as an affiliation of the Boy Scouts.
Well, if they are violating the National Boy Scouts organization's rules or bylaws, that's up to them. But they are not violating our local federal requirements and eligibility for the receipt of CDBG funds.
Okay, and that's how you interpret that?
We are very clear on that. Historically, we have received those types of rulings from our LA HUD office.
Okay. And that's very clear. You have somewhere in writing? Can I get that statement in writing?
We have executed agreements. We'll get you what we can that speaks to that, Committee Member Ramirez.
And then that same kind of concern that was raised in the past about, the schools and the community centers that are public have to be located, the services they provide using CDBG funds have to be located in specific census tracts. And that should apply to nonprofits, community centers as well. And so the Los Angeles Home and Edmond is not in any of our census tracts. But they've been assured that they're in compliance. Yes. So I just I need something that's more assuring than what I've heard.
According to HUD, they could be located outside of the city limits, but if they demonstrate that they serve primarily Glendale residents and low-income residents, then they are eligible to receive Glendale CDBG funds.
But how come the city services and the schools and everything else seems like does HUD have different?
Yes.
They do, because
they have different requirements.
I also believe that they do have part of their center that is within Glendale. Mm-hmm. They're like
the North Campus
on
is
one block. Part is in Glendale.
Okay. They have one in the city limits and one outside of the city limits.
Yeah.
Right.
And you do verify all of this before you permit the application to come to us. So we're pretty confident that these questions should be prior to even us receiving the application. So. Yes, Mr. Correa.
Yeah, just to expand a little bit, just our monitoring, our reviews still require the agencies to submit documentation on each of the applicants. And I know it's a very challenging task for the agencies, Home and Edmond or ARS or any other Salvation Army, but we do have to make strides so that the agencies do supply us the address information, income information for the agencies. HUD does not require a community center to be in a low-income tract per se, but if you're not in a low-income tract, then you are required to collect just income verification documenting that the self-certifications that the participants are low, and again, 60% are, at least 60% are low income. So that's what we do with our agencies, and you'll hear them, certainly their concerns is a lot of paperwork, but because, again, we're trying to meet HUD regulations, it's required for them to submit that paperwork, and we certainly make it part of our agreement for all these requirements by HUD. And so far, our HUD monitors have just, and insisted for us to keep the paperwork going and not brought up any issues on that.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I guess you were looking at me. I just have a very brief comment. This is my first time, obviously, for both of us. It's our first time, and it's not easy to allocate funds when there's so little money available and the need is so great. And to a certain extent, I think we all shared certain frustrations, and I'm sure that there's agencies that are probably not too pleased. However, this is what we have. This is what's available to us, and actually, I'm pleased with our decision, and I hope we get increased funding next year.
I agree.
Jim, my only additional comment is I would really want to thank all the organizations that took the large amounts of time it takes to apply for these funds. They're obviously coming from a place where they all want to help the community, and we wish we could provide more for them to do the good work that they do. So hopefully, even with the funds that we were able to recommend today, and if City Council approves it, they can maintain their programs with the hope that that will increase in the future.
And I echo that. I think these organizations are doing a great job in the community, and we depend on their valuable service every day. So again, I'd like to thank them all for presenting their projects today. I also want to thank the staff. They've done a great job preparing these reports for us. Iris, Moses, and Jess, I mean, we can't do this without you, so thank you. And to my fellow commissioners, you did excellent today. I mean, you did your homework. You knew exactly what we're facing today, and you asked the right questions, so I'm very proud to serve with you. So thank you for serving this commission.
Madam Vice Chair, you did a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Moses. Thank you, Iris.
Yeah. I appreciate
Thank
the
you.
collegiality amongst all of us. I know we sometimes have disagreements, but I appreciate
We're supposed to, aren't we?
That's how it's.
Well, just a reminder that this is not over.
Not over.
You will be
Yes.
reunited on Monday morning, 8 a.m. for the capital improvement projects.
Darn it, I was thinking
By and
it was
large, you
over.
will have fewer proposals. We do have the city pre-designated projects, departments presenting, and then followed by the 5 proposals, I believe, that you received. So it is another, but I think the experience you've had today would guide you towards the process on Monday. So we will not go over the deliberation process again, but it'd be the spreadsheet and then your recommendations there. So hope to have you out before noon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great weekend. Thank you.
Iris, you think we could get a copy of that spreadsheet? Thank you.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
We can get it Monday, right?